phone, if you wouldn't mind putting them on vibrate or turning them off so it's not to interrupt the meeting. And a reminder to the supervisors to please speak into the microphone. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll move the approval of the agenda as presented. Is there a second? Seconded by Forkert. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. We have the minutes from the Wednesday, September 17th meeting. Any additions, corrections? Seeing none, I'll move their approval as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Mulligan. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. We also have the minutes of the special board meeting of September 17th. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, I'll move their approval as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Gaz. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Going on, we have the special meeting of the Board and Finance Committee of Tuesday, September 16th. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, I'll move the approval of those minutes.
Second.
Seconded by Forkert. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. And then we have the special meeting of the Board with the Finance Committee of Tuesday, September 23rd. Any additions, corrections? Seeing none, I'll move their approval as presented.
Second.
Seconded by Mulligan. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. I believe our guest is not here yet, so I think what we'll do then is move on, and when he gets here, we'll bring him back. Okay, treasurer's report, Janet. Go ahead.
Okay, for the month of September, we began in the municipal checking account with a balance of $199,517.24. Small amount of interest posted, bringing that account to $199,518.99. Okay, in the money market account, we began with a balance of $210,619.26. The proceeds to pay off the bond went in and then came out. Small amount of interest brought that balance to $207,185.75. In the checking account, we began with $292,077.54. With deposits, we had an NSF check, but that was replaced. The FICA state payroll and disbursements brought that balance to $115,602.06. Utility district fund has a balance of $248,541.94. In the North Shore money market account, we began with a balance of $250,605.38. After interest, that balance is now $250,622.54, with a balance in all town accounts at the end of September of $1,021,471.28.
Any questions?
I move we approve the treasurer's report.
I'll second that.
Motion by Forkert, seconded by Gaz to approve. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We'll go on to the bills. Are there any questions? You should have in front of you an revised bills, and it would be the top 9 or 6 been added.
Just real,
Couple on the bottom.
Couple on the bottom as well.
just out of curiosity, the $400 bond, does Liberty Grove charge people $400 and then take it back? What's,
That's the, a bond, or it's called a occupancy deposit. It's paid when the building permits are taken out, and then that is refunded when the final inspection is done for occupancy. It's kind of supposed to be an incentive for people to finish their project, so they get their $400 back.
it's not much of an incentive.
It works.
All right.
Any other questions anybody has? If not, then I'll move we approve the bills as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Cavazos. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, then let's go on to the high-speed internet survey results. David? David is chairman of our, what was the IT committee, now the technology committee, so.
Our guest this evening is Dr. Russ Cation, who's director of the Fiscal and Economic Research Center at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. He's also a professor of economics at the university. Dr. Cation has a very impressive resume. I have a copy if anybody care to peruse it after the meeting. The Fiscal and Economic Research Center is does work in applied economics at the university. And basically, they provide research services for area businesses, not-for-profit organizations, and government entities. Some of the research areas that the center works on include economic analysis, market research and planning, government and public policy analysis, entrepreneurship, and economic forecasting and business development. There's a much longer list. I selected several of the items. Their mission is to tap into the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater faculty expertise and provide outreach services to members of the regional community. I ran across Dr. Cation's work. It came to my attention when he presented in a webinar put on by the University of Wisconsin Extension regarding broadband services in rural communities in Wisconsin. The project that he presented in that webinar was one that was done early in this year, and it was a study of the impact of broadband services in a rural area of Wisconsin, and it was the impact on seasonal residents. So the effect on seasonal residents and seasonal homeowners. And after listening to the presentation that Dr. Cation made at that time, he indicated that they were able to do additional research in other areas of Wisconsin, and I contacted him and asked him if they could do research on Liberty Grove on this topic, because such a high proportion of our homeowners are seasonal residents, and wanted to find out what the economic effect would have of enhanced broadband services. Dr. Cation agreed to do a survey of Liberty Grove homeowners, and he very, very kindly waived the center's usual fee for that, so this survey has not cost Liberty Grove anything. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Cation and let him take over from here.
Welcome, Doctor. Thank you.
Evening. Apologize for being late. I've been coming up to Door County for the last 30 years, and I've been getting lost up here for the last 30 years. My wife's family actually were one of the original settlers of Ephraim, the Onison family. And they still own the family house. They've been up here for about 160 years. And one of the things that,
Which one am I choosing?
oh, the PowerPoint, sorry. Do you have a clicker?
No.
Okay. I can't see that
There's
far.
two of them.
Let's see
One
which
is
one.
Door County Broadband,
Yeah,
and
the
the
other
other
one.
is Wisconsin.
That's my, now Door County, broadband. I've been coming up here for 30 years. When David called me, it happened, I come up usually the 4th of July weekend with my children and visit. I'm not a great vacationer. I wouldn't describe myself as a workaholic because I don't think I work that hard, but I love to work. And I've always had trouble coming up here because I hate to say it, I get bored. Well, my children are part of a generation where, like it or not, they get bored worse than me. And they're always looking for internet availability to play their games and do their things. I don't know if it's a good thing. It's a reality of life. And so we had done this study in Vilas, Forest, and another county, and I wasn't real pleased with it. Wasn't pleased with the results. And I wanted to do it again, and when David called me and said, can you take a look at our area, I was excited because it's a contiguous area and it's very homogeneous in its kind of geography. We did a survey of part-time residents. And what we did different from Vilas and Forest counties, we mailed it basically to their Chicago homes. We were provided with the tax rolls, we sent it down to Chicago, they sent them back. We got a little over 20% response rate, which is pretty darn good for an unsolicited survey. And we asked a series of questions. I'm sure most of the people in this room have recently received one, because then we followed that up with a survey of Washington Island. So we're kind of curious what's going up on Washington Island. There's about 400 homeowners on Washington Island. There's about 1,000 part-time homeowners in this township, and there's about 600 full-time homeowners in this area. We just sent out 600 surveys to the full-time homeowners because we have an academic question that we're pondering, which is there a difference in attitude regarding broadband between part-timers and full-timers? Could be the full-timers moved here to get away. The part-timers moved here to get away for a couple of days. If we just move, I'm gonna make this relatively fast. I'm gonna be around, so you can ask me any questions you want.
Where am I going? 'Cause
Just if you click on the little toggle and turn, I like the apple. I own an orchard. If we click on,
where am I going?
yeah, I'm gonna do this, just to get us rocking and rolling here. There. We're just gonna keep moving. We have basically 4 main economic impacts of improved broadband. We have visitors, relocation of visitors, business development, and then more visitors. If you go to the next one, 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 go to the next one. 23% of Americans living in rural areas lack access to fixed broadband, satisfying a benchmark. That's rural America. We don't have broadband. It makes it very difficult to conduct business. It makes it difficult to exist in a modern society. And so people object. As I said, I don't want to impose my personal judgments on other people, but it's something that I observe. Go to the next one, please. Of course, visitors. Go to the next one. We did a survey. We asked a series of questions. If you've gotten one at home, and to be honest, if you don't feel comfortable answering it, I've had some phone calls. People said, I don't want to answer the questions. Don't answer them. I mean, if you don't want to tell me how much you spend on entertainment, That's fine. You have to understand, what we're trying to do is estimate what the daily spending is of people, and we'll get to that. We find that the part-time residents' daily expenditure, construction's irrelevant, it has to do with something else, but that, it's very noisy because year to year, people spend different amounts on home improvements. Fishing and boating, they spend about 58 cents a day. Launch fees, dining out, they spend about $17 a day. $17 a day. Can you eat in Door County for $17 at a restaurant? No. I went out to dinner tonight, I know that for a fact. But the reality is, these are homeowners. These are people who have condos or houses, and they don't go out to dinner every day when they're up here. So if they go out every 4 days or every 5 days, multiply it, and it turns out to be $60, $70, $80. That would make sense. And this is for the household. Entertainment, going to movies, things like that. Groceries, gas. We look at all these items. Works out, go to the next slide. Go to the next slide. How much longer would you stay in Liberty Grove if you had access to broadband internet? 58% said I wouldn't stay any longer. I agree with that. I think a lot of people are happy. We believe in economics as marginal analysis. How do you get someone to buy a little bit more? It's not how do you get them to change their entire lifestyle. How do we get 42% of the people to stay another day, another 2 days? Not to get them to stay another 365 days. Let's get them to stay a little bit more. And then spend a little bit more of those 58 cents on fishing, or the $17 on restaurants. And so when we look at this, and we're up to, by the way, 200 surveys. We keep getting them back. I would move there permanently, very small, very small. To be a dramatic change in your lifestyle based on having the internet. I don't necessarily believe that, perhaps, but I don't know if I buy into that entirely. Go to the next one. Using a weighted calculation, and we threw out the people who said they were gonna live here full-time, because it skews the numbers. Adding 300 days to the, dividing it, it puts us over 20 days. I took them out. And so let's be conservative. 12 days. 20% said that the internet access issues, whether it's speed or reliability, prevents them from staying longer in their vacation home. They spend about $117 a day. That's what they spend. They're buying groceries, they're buying gasoline, they're renting boats, they're going to the theater, they're spending money in the market. 12 days gives, it says they're gonna spend another $1,400 in this area if they had improved reliability or speed. Please go to the next. There are 995 unique seasonal residential properties from the tax rolls. Go to the next, actually, we'll go back. So they were willing to pay $167 per year on improved internet service. Probably a little overstated. My experience with surveys, and we send out probably 8 to 10 surveys a year as people participate in what's called cheap talk. You ask them how much they're willing to pay, they say $167. You hand them a bill for $167. I mean, I will tell you my dissertation, I'll make it very fast. My dissertation was on how much are you willing to pay to live next door to Russ. It was $5.61. I sent them bills. Even my friends didn't send me money. That actually was my dissertation. Because I have a farm right near Milwaukee, and everyone who lives around me is against me developing it. So I think 167 is probably a little high, but people are willing to pay something for improved internet. Go to the next one. So we multiply it out. My students who do this, and I have 18 students who work for me doing research, they like to explicitly mark everything down. So they said you have 995 households, times 12.1 days, times 58 cents for fishing, and it comes out to be $6,982 in fishing expenses. And you see they calculate all of them. If you go to the next slide, that's what you end up with. What do you end up with in the Liberty Grove? You end up with 20 jobs that pay $20,000 a year. Where are those jobs at? I'll ask this gentleman. The 20 jobs that are created in Liberty Grove that pay $20,000 a year.
Probably in the restaurants.
Restaurant business. Part of our business, part of doing this economic analysis is, can I sleep at night with the numbers? Do I believe them? And if I come up with 20 jobs paying $10 million, I know my students screwed up. I believe this. I believe that if you're spending $16 going to restaurants and 58 cents buying worms and spending money at the gas station, yes, you're gonna create them, you're gonna create 20 jobs. I would say this, if I came to Liberty Grove tomorrow and said, I have an economic plan, town board, and I'm gonna create 20 jobs, they'd probably name it a cul-de-sac after me. Not a long one, but it would be nice. I mean, we poo-poo 20 jobs, but the world's built on 20 jobs. And how do we create 20 jobs? We have better access to the internet. We encourage families to come up more often. To spend 1 day or 2 days or 3 days more, and they don't bolt out of town when their kid complains they can't get in touch with their friends or they can't play we're on TV, right? Their stupid internet game, which is my children. Output's about $1.2 million in sales. We can extrapolate this out. If we go to the next slide, we extrapolate it out to Door County. We go 2 more slides up. We have 7,759 seasonal houses in Door County. And the Door County Economic Development Association did a study and they found 36% complained about their internet access. We came out with 20%. I think the people in Liberty Grove are more humble. They don't complain as much. But I put up these numbers because they anchor back to the other research that's been done. Go to the next one, and go to the next one, and keep going. When we're to the final one. And we come up with, in Door County, we make a concerted effort to improve access and speed. That it would encourage people to come up to where my in-laws are in Ephraim, Egg Harbor, all of these other places, and it would create 159 jobs. Those are full-time equivalent jobs. I believe the numbers. I think they are meaningful. And I think that this is how, in my experience, people work. People say, I want to be somewhere. And the way you do economic development, I think I took the slide out of there. I had an economist, a city planner once say to me, because we were asked to do this in Viles County, based on the idea these people had over in other areas, that if they had better internet, maybe Goldman Sachs would relocate to Antigo, Wisconsin.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, you're not gonna, your best bet you're gonna get is the person from Goldman Sachs will spend 12 more days a year there, because they can get in touch with their employees. But the saying that the people had, who I was working with in economic development, said if you build a place people want to visit, you'll build a place that people want to move to. And you'll build a place that businesses want to be at to service to people who visited and moved there. And now that you have a business there, people want to visit more. But first you have to get a place that people want to visit, to just introduce them to the whole concept. And that's where I think the strength of having access to the internet comes in. Now, does anyone have any questions?
I'd like to, yeah, go ahead. Of all the jobs that are $20,000 a year, that's like $10 an hour, what it boils down to. That's poverty. Is that a real plus?
Well, it's a plus if you're making nothing. I would argue, I worked many jobs in my life where I made minimum wage. And I worked very, very hard, and I moved myself up. But I had to start somewhere. I'm in favor of work, and I'm in favor of people starting somewhere.
When you
Anybody
say
else?
improved, I'm sorry, Carl, when you say improved broadband, give me an idea what you think improved is.
Improved is a perception. It's better than it is today. It's faster, it's more reliable, it doesn't dump you. I've had internet in my house where I've had it wireless, I've had it through satellite. When I get a winter storm and I wanna track the storm, my internet always goes out. I personally, and I was telling you at dinner, I had to have Warner Cable pull internet down my driveway, which is a third of a mile long, and it cost me $5,000. I never lose the internet. For me, it was worth it. I'm a professor at a university, I need access. I need connection. So what I want is I want speed and I want reliability and I want better speed and I want better reliability. And it comes down to people's perceptions. Yes, sir.
As a full-time resident here and one who's actively on the internet, what is I know what your definition of speeds are. I happen to be on wireless internet and I never get the speeds that they claim I should get. Are you talking about cable? Are you talking about fiber optic cable? What exactly is your definition of broadband?
I have none. I'm an economist, not an engineer. I can tell you when we ask the people, and you ask them, do you want faster internet? And they say yes. That is their definition of faster internet.
Well, they're not gonna say they're gonna want slower internet or the same.
No,
internet.
a lot of them said they're happy with what they have.
What?
Over half the people said they're happy with the service they have today.
I mean, the proper question would be, do you wanna pay more for faster internet?
That's what we asked. And they said they were,
They were what?
willing to pay more.
I mean, I'd be willing to pay more, but I don't know if I'm an aberration or not.
You're part of the less than 50%. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, your list of types of internet service
Yeah,
didn't include broadband in your survey. Unfortunately, that's what a lot of us have. Maybe you assumed we didn't have it, but we do have broadband up here, but you didn't have it on the list. So doesn't that skew the results of the survey because you didn't even have it on the list to pick?
well, possibly, but if people had it, they certainly had the right to write it in.
Well, that's kind of confusing because you have on here dial-up, DSL, cable, cellular service, satellite, other. And if a lot of us already had it, when I spoke to the person who, at the university, she said, they assumed from this survey that nobody up here had broadband. That's what she said.
That's, oh,
And we do have broadband. up here.
okay, it's the survey,
That makes a
the
difference.
the definition was, I can tell you, the definition was written by the Broadband Institute at UW Extension. That grid, that matrix there,
They don't have the word broadband anymore?
I don't know.
Well, you should.
I can tell you, I'm gonna check it when I get back. I'm happy to check that out. Yes, sir.
I've had charter, cable, and evenings, things would slow down,
Kids are home.
so I switched to Frontier, and I don't get slowed down anymore. And we get about 4 megabits per second, and I consider that pretty good. So now I'm assuming that's DSL, that's what I checked off in the survey.
Okay,
So I'm happy.
that's what you want. But you want more people to be happy. I mean, is DSL available on every street and every house in town?
Frontier says no, but mostly, because there are some where their connections are not up to snuff where they can get the broadband into you because you're too far away or too many connections. But most of them, they say they can bring in broadband speed.
It grows every year.
And that's what I've heard.
Of course, it increases because the business is coming in.
Yeah. And that's good. That's a, you know, from what I've been, you know, I've investigated, from what I've heard is it's expanding every year. This is a positive. You want it to expand, and then, by the way, when it gets faster, I can tell you you're gonna want it faster. It's gonna get faster, you're gonna want more. Yes, sir.
I wanted to add one thing to Hugh's comment. I think it would be safe to say where we live here, that those $20,000 a year jobs, most of those jobs, you'd only be working from the 4th of July to Labor Day. And in that case, 20 grand isn't too shabby.
It's, you know, perhaps. I mean, I don't wanna defend $20,000 a year jobs.
Well, my
Yeah,
point is,
yeah, I
my
know.
point is, very few people work year-round here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a fact of life, just like you said, a fact of life is people want the internet. So I just wanted to make the point that, you know, if you broke that down into seasonal jobs, that amount of money would be valuable. So.
Yes, sir.
The implication of this survey is that you're suggesting a call to action of some kind by our elected representatives or businesses or whatever here, and I'm really confused as to where you would like to go with this. I mean, it's one thing to say everybody wants faster service, but I don't know what the definition of that is. And I'm not trying to be cute. I'm just trying to say, we have deep sea broadband, we have Frontier, we have Hughes Internet, we have, Wild Blue, we have, a few other ones here. I mean, broadband is readily available up here, and you're really asking people who would want faster service, if they wanted it, they could go out and buy it from one of the vendors up here that already offer it. So I don't understand where you're trying to get with this survey.
In regards to policy?
You know, what are you doing
I mean,
here?
you're saying people want faster internet service. We all get that. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, I don't understand, what is the directive of this survey? What's the point of it?
The point of it is that if people had access, I mean, I know I'm just gonna repeat what you said. But if people had access to faster and more reliable internet, as they perceive it, if they had access, they would spend more time here.
I'm not making that argument. I don't think anybody, I mean, that's a given. I understand the end game of where you are. But what is the call to action that you're suggesting, given the fact that we do have broadband service up here? It's not as fast as I would like, but there is broadband service available. And people, the seasonal residents even, are making an economic decision that either, I don't know anybody who's on dial-up, I'll be honest with you. But they're making an economic decision that they can go to their coffee shop and have Wi-Fi for a couple of hours a day or whatever. I mean, this stuff is readily available, and I don't understand, you know, I'm trying to get to the point of your report. I know the result, and more people would stay longer if we had faster service, but between here and there, where are you going with this thing? What is the point of it?
That's where you're going. See, we're not talking about policy here. We're talking about results of policy. The policy has to come down to the local residents. It isn't my, I'm not an engineer, and I'm not a politician. At the end of the day, I can tell you a path to growth. How do you take that path? I mean, I'm gonna give you one option, communicate these options better to the population. Do they understand them? I mean, I don't know. You say there's 6 different variables or variations of internet available. It's a communication issue. That's one thing. But that's a policy. And so if you are able to transfer this, this is the result. There's a beginning, there's an end, there's a middle. I'm the beginning, I'm the end. Yes, sir, you keep going. Yes, sir.
My name's Kevin Voss, I'm the owner of Door County Broadband. And I've read your study, and I assume saw your studies online, and basically you hit the nail on the head. We purchased this company in August of 2000, or I'm sorry, April of 2014, for the sole purpose of what you're saying, is the broadband up here has left a little bit to be desired. So our goal is to come in and allow people like myself and whoever else who loved coming here but couldn't stay, to live here and now stay. And that's what we do. We live here full-time residents. My point for saying all this is, we have calls every single day from people saying, if you can continue to expand as you're expanding, we will spend more time here. We hear it every single day. People that want to relocate here but need faster broadband, so they can do their jobs from wherever they're coming from, all over the Midwest. Sam over at DCDC has been just a stellar proponent of what we're doing, and has helped us, as we have helped the folks in Door County, continue to get the word out that we do have options here, but our goal simply is to do exactly what you're saying, is to continue to expand the broadband so that people can come here and spend more time here.
Okay, the gentleman in the back, please.
Does this whole situation take care of itself by competitiveness, that other companies keep coming in that have faster broadband? Is it something that takes care of itself, or is it something that even the town has to do somehow, or how is it being looked at? Is it just competitive enough in there, that a business like this man has, that somebody comes in and they get more competitive all the time?
Well,
You join them, is that the way it fixes itself?
I believe the private sector is the solution to all problems. I mean, I think the private sector needs to see opportunity and needs to see that options are available and they're communicated. Yeah, I mean, competitiveness it's gonna drive down the price, and it's gonna increase the quality.
So won't this eventually take care of itself, or do you have to be screaming for faster internet, everybody, in order to get this to happen, or how does it work?
Well, sometimes it could take longer if you don't identify the problem or the opportunities. I mean, if you don't identify it, I mean, this is why we do market studies, because we want to identify opportunities, so that we can fulfill those gaps quickly. I believe the market, and look, in the last 20 years, it's evolved dramatically. It's, when I used to sit in Ephraim in the parking lot of the library with my laptop on my lap, trying to glom onto their internet after hours. Now, the hotel I stay in, because the cottage is too small for my kids, has internet. So I have to go down to the library and put it on my lap. Because the market steps in and starts to take care of these things. I think, did you have, there was someone I saw here. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm really trying to, let me rephrase the question
Sure.
here. Because this is a business, I have to be a relatively satisfied customer of the gentleman back here. Obviously, he's in competition with other broadband providers up here. But Liberty Grove, I assume, spent a certain amount, oh, you did it for free, so I can throw that out. Anyway, the point is that what I see here is competing businesses for economic decisions that are made by the individual, customers such as myself, and the businesses up here. And how does why is your presentation here to the supervisors of Liberty Grove, I mean, how is the town supposed to interact with what you're telling us here?
And shine a light on it.
Pardon me?
Shine a light on the opportunities.
I'm sorry, shine what light on what opportunity?
What improved and faster internet would offer the community? What is it that would offer it? I mean, that's what we're saying.
So you're putting an economic dollar on it.
We're putting a dollar. That's what we do. We put dollars on things that otherwise people have an ethereal thought about. They think about it. They go, it's valuable, but I don't know how to quantify it. If I was a sociologist, I'd be putting smiley faces up there. I'm not a sociologist. I'm an economist. I put dollar signs on everything. And so that's what we're trying to do here. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm missing a leap, over to, new jobs from this survey, I see nothing that connects this in any way to this idea of new jobs. And also from the leap from one page of this presentation to another, I don't see where you came up with the jobs or what kind of data here had anything to do with coming up with jobs.
It's an input-output analysis. You basically have your inputs, and you're gonna input $16.71 in spending as an average spending per day at a restaurant. And you're gonna say that the average person is gonna spend 12.1 days more up here. And if what they're saying, that they're gonna spend this money, and there are 995 part-time residents, it's gonna create that much, if you go back or you can just go back, it's right there. This is the aggregation for the county. If you're saying that 7,759 part-time residents are gonna spend an average of $17.72 a day, and are gonna spend 12.1 days here, that's gonna generate $1.6 million in restaurant sales. If you go back forward, and all of these will create those sales. Go back to, go the other way, sorry, go the other way. There. That will create direct sales of $6.6 million if you move those numbers along. Those 132 people and those $6 million in sales, given that they're gonna spend $17 on one thing, 58 cents on another thing, it's gonna aggregate up to $6 million. They're gonna have to buy inputs. The restaurant, the grocery store, the fishermen are gonna have to buy inputs that they're gonna use to sell you the output. They're gonna have to buy chicken so they can make their chicken sandwich. They're gonna have to buy lettuce. They're gonna have to buy all of these inputs, they're gonna have to hire labor. That's the indirect effect. The induced effect is the people who get hired are ultimately gonna go out and spend the $20,000 that they made, going out and buying gasoline, renting apartments, doing those other things. It's an input-output analysis. We have these inputs. They just don't simply sit there in a stagnant pond. You have other effects. It aggregates out to 158 jobs for the county. By the way, there's leakages. I'm gonna stop this. There's leakages in the fact that that $2.4 million in labor income up there, a lot of the things they buy aren't made up here. Someone's gonna go out and buy a flat screen television. Well, we don't make them in Door County. We make them in the United States. So it's gonna leak out of here, and that's why the indirect effect and the induced effect are quite a bit smaller than the direct effect. We take that into account. Otherwise, you'd have this circular flow in which the money would continue to circulate round and round and round. Yes, sir, in the back.
Are you calculating how much more business a restaurant would have to have before it hires another employee to take care of this extra people that are in there? Or
Yes.
Or are you gonna be waiting in line for another hour and a half at a restaurant?
Well, you know, that's a good question, because the model assumes there's excess capacity in the system. I can tell you, and I don't wanna take up all your time, I was down in a small town in southern Wisconsin, and they were talking about bringing in a business that employed 100 people in an entire county that had less than 300 unemployed people. And the problem there was what? It would have wage inflation as they started bidding on the better employees. The model assumes there's excess capacity, that there are 20 people in the county who are actually looking for jobs.
That's an assumption that would not be true.
Well, you know,
That's the problem with it.
it's a problem with all models. So you basically make the statement that you don't want to give 20 people an opportunity to get a job because they don't exist. I mean, I don't make that assumption. Yes, ma'am.
I might be approaching this very simplistic, but if people want better internet, they will buy better internet from a man like this that can help them. they're seasonal people and they wanna be here and they want better service, they will buy that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get it. What, I mean,
I think the point is that there are areas of the county that that's not even an option, Joel, where you can't get internet, no matter how much money you got, you can't get it, because it's not available. I have customers that I work for that I take care of their homesteads here, that have been trying for 6 years to get decent internet at their house on Timberline Road, and had no success. So I think that's kind of where we're, I mean, it's obvious that you can go out and buy whatever you want if it's available, but if it's not available, you can't even do that.
So how does this solve any problem then? What does this got to do with that?
He's making the point that if we do what we can to make it better available, this is what it could possibly do for us. as
Well,
far
I'm
as
sure
adding
that's what
jobs
the
and-
broadband companies are doing.
Well, and I
without
applaud
any
this
help
gentleman
from
here.
this.
because-
Yeah.
But that, you know, I
That's their
think he could
business.
probably attest that people call you and are there still customers that you say, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't get you a decent signal there. I understand that, but that's the problem we have.
Well, and to answer that question, basically what we've been doing is we, you know, the companies that we bought was a 23-year-old and a 14-year-old company that wasn't really in expansion mode. We, right now, to answer a lot of what you're saying, is we broke ground on 4 new towers in the last 30 days. We have 7 planned for next year already on the books, and our goal is expansion of towers and also capacity for those towers. So we're doing a 3-year upgrade on all the entire infrastructure, which is 3 years of a lot of work and a lot of money. But the goal is to actually try the best we can to compete with all the out-of-town companies. We're locally owned and operated. It's all we are, rural Door County. So we compete with all the rest of these guys. We don't have federal subsidies. We don't have anything. It's just us. And we're doing it the old-fashioned way. We go out and knock on doors, figure out how to get towers up, how to put customers on, and to do the best we can to take care of them. And it's to find, if there's a hole on Timberline Road, I need to see you afterwards, because I will see if there's anything we can do. But our goal is if we find the holes, our first 7 towers are holes that have existed forever that nobody did anything about. We're doing something about it. But there's an infrastructure cost to all of this. The town of Liberty Grove has been, we've visited with them on issues that they've had, that they've asked us to look at things. We are doing that. Our goal is to take residents, because basically at some point, this impacts the town's residential base, because if they don't address these, people go where they go. Who has this product? Our goal is to make sure that anybody has the right to be anywhere and have internet service. That's what Door County Broadband is about.
Yes.
When you had mentioned, Dr. Cation, about the rural area that you did this study in Wisconsin, and that was a governmental entity that, whether it was the county or some municipality in that area that requested your study?
The North Woods Broadband Coalition requested it. The challenge there was, it was such a large area that it was hard to extrapolate the numbers out.
But in addition to what Kevin just said about the town being able to at least cooperate with companies like Kevin's, like Door County Broadband, is there anything else? I mean, you said this would just shine a light, and you're an advocate of private enterprise, sort of, but is there anything else that a governmental entity can do to at least more than shine a light on something, to, and in addition to cooperate with entrepreneurs like Kevin? Is there something else a municipality can do to foster or encourage broadband?
We'll identify those areas that are theoretically lacking access, and let the private sector understand where the opportunities are. I mean, if there, as you said, if there's a house on a certain street that doesn't have access, it'd be nice if they knew this, because it may be there's something, some device you can put into place to make it available.
And then wouldn't this itself, this presentation itself, be a way that the town has promoted the whole idea of what you're talking about?
Well, I think you have to add, sometimes towns wanna know, what is our effort worth? Why do we do things? Is That's what we're trying to do is show that positive externalities. Things that, yeah, sorry, you, please, before,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, please.
This actually is a good question I've been meaning to ask, and that is that there are some municipal governments that provide high-speed internet for their residents, typically in the form of Wi-Fi. The town I'm thinking of is Two Rivers, Wisconsin. Have you or your colleagues ever done any economic analysis on the communities that do that?
No, we haven't asked us to, and we don't try to step on toes. People don't come and ask me for help. But I was gonna say, positive externalities is what Door County's about. And people buy houses and they live in places based on what value they get in addition to the house itself. I mean, a house is a house. It's gonna be 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and it's gonna be 1,600 square feet. What is it that the community offers you that is more special than the next community? Quality of schools, quality of life. And that's why I have that goofy picture of the apple. How do you polish the apple? How do you promote your community to be better than the next community? One of my colleagues said to me, "Why do we care?" Criticized me, it's fine. Down the hall, Kurt said, "Why do we care? Why do we care if Liberty Grove is nicer than Sturgeon Bay?" It's a zero-sum game, right? And I asked him, I said, that weekend UW-Whitewater was playing UW lacrosse and football. And I said, who cares who wins? Either way, Wisconsin wins. Well, I actually care if UW-Whitewater wins. I happen to root for the home team. And we live in cities that we care about our economic development, and we try to polish the apple. I imagine you actually have some considerable amount of work to do tonight.
Any other questions anybody has? Board? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Going on to number 8, it's public input. This is the opportunity for those in attendance to address the board on any particular subject, and also to address the board on any of the agendized items. Anybody wish on just a general comment? And since we are on YouTube, we'd suggest ask that you step to the podium. Any general comments, please? Okay. Anybody that wants to comment on any of the agendized items, please? Peter?
I'd like to speak to number 10.
Anybody else, please?
Going in rows?
We'll go, Mike.
Yes, 10 and 11, please. Thank you.
Carl?
11 and 16.
Susan?
11, 12, 13,
11, 12, and
13,
13? Joel?
12 and 13.
Anybody else? Jim?
Number 11.
Carol? Anybody else? Yes, Jim?
12 and 13.
And name, please?
Casey St. Henry.
Anybody else?
What do you have, 13?
12 and 13. Okay, let's then go on to number 9. Consider the resolution recommending levy override per section 66.0602, parent 5 of the Wisconsin statutes. You have a copy of that in front of you, board.
Yes.
And I'll make a motion to approve the following resolution. It's Resolution 1014, to increase the levy over state imposed limit. Whereas the state of Wisconsin has adopted levy limits on town, village, city, and county levies for 2013 and thereafter under section 66.0602 of Wisconsin statutes. Whereas section 66.0602 of Wisconsin statutes limit the the local levy for 2014 to a percentage increase to no more than the greater of A, 0% of the allowable 2013 town tax levy based on the state's levy limit law, or B, a percentage equal to the percentage change in equalized value due to the new construction, less improvements removed, which for the town of Liberty Grove is 0.348%. Whereas the town board of the town of Liberty Grove, Door County, Wisconsin, believes that for the 2014 tax levy collected in 2015, it is in the town's interest to exceed the state levy limit as described above by a greater percentage than the 0.348%. Whereas the town of Liberty Grove levy for 2014 is $1,000,000, there's an extra one, $1,574,563 for the tax levy of 2013 collected in 2014. And further, where the state limit would limit the increase to $39,831 for a total allowable tax levy of $1,614,394 for 2014 collected in 2015. Now therefore, the Town Board of Liberty Grove, Door County, Wisconsin does hereby resolve and order as follows. 1, the Town Board hereby supports an increase in the town tax levy for 2014 to be collected in 2015 that will exceed the state levy limit. 2, the Town Board directs the question of increasing the town tax levy for 2014 to be collected in 2015 by 35.4%, which would increase the town levy by $518,159 on an ongoing basis for a total town tax levy of $2,132,553 shall be placed on the agenda for the special town meeting to be held on November 17, 2014. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Roll call, please.
Can I ask you just a quick question?
Go ahead.
Currently, the levy is 1.6 million, that's what we're taking, right, Bud?
That's our levy. Levy limit is 1,614,394.
And we're going up 513,
518.
518. Does that add up to the 2 point? I guess
To
it
the
does.
2 million, no. It's added to the 1,614.
Okay, the math makes sense now,
Okay.
okay, yeah.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Mulligan,
Yes.
Forkert,
Yes.
Goss,
Aye.
Cavazos,
Aye.
Lowry,
Aye.
carries 5-0.
Okay. Going on to item number 10, consider the Plan Commission recommendation, the variance of section 3.02, parent 3, parent A, Door County zoning, which requires 150-foot setback in SF 30 districts. Nancy?
What about 9A and the rest of them?
Whoops, I got the, I'm sorry.
Got the old one.
I've got the
Threw me
old
for a
one.
loop there.
Sorry. All right, I'm sorry. 9A, consider setting budget hearing for the 2015 town budget on November 17th. I move we set the budget hearing for 2015 town budget on November 17, 2014,
At 6:30.
at 6:30.
I'll second.
Second? All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
1 second, let me check on the time. It's 7 o'clock?
No, 6.
6 o'clock. Budget hearing at 6, as in the past.
We need the second needs to pull.
Why do you need to change it? I mean, can't you just change it?
No.
No?
Frank seconded.
Frank, you want to pull your second? We got to change the time.
My second.
Okay.
Change the time.
All right, then I'll make a motion to set the budget hearing for 2015 on November 17th, 2014 at 6 PM. Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Then pursuant to sections 60.1, 60.12, parent 1, parent C of the Wisconsin statutes, consider calling a special town meeting on November 17th, 2014 for 1, pursuant to section 82.03, parent 2, parent A, Wisconsin statutes authorize a greater sum for construction, maintenance, and repair of highways and bridges than the product of 5,000 multiplied by the miles of highway under the jurisdiction of the town, measured by the most recent highway mileage for the town is determined under statute 86.302. 2, pursuant to section 66.0602, parent 5, Wisconsin statutes exceeding the levy increase limit. And 3, pursuant to section 60.10, parent 1, parent A, Wisconsin statute setting 2014 tax levy pay in 2015. I make a motion that we call a special town meeting immediately following the budget hearing on November 17th, 2014.
Second.
Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. And then 9C, considered setting special board meeting for November 17th to adopt the 2015 budget. I move we set a special board meeting for November 17th, 2014, immediately following the special town meeting.
Second.
Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Now Nancy.
So
Okay.
I have a quick question. We're
Yes,
gonna
go
start
ahead.
at 6. Think we'll get out of there by 7 or not?
Probably 7.5, yeah.
Question, John?
Yes.
Was that posted? That's, I got it off the internet, and I also looked at the post office. Is that full agenda posted like that?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
John?
Yes.
Just one other quick clarification. When it says exceed 5,000 per mile, is there any ceiling to that? Are you guys acknowledging any ceiling to that exceeding of over 5,000? Is it up to any amount per mile now, or when you say exceeding it? Is there-
Well, we've set it to, I believe it's the 500,000, I've got that figure in front of me, off the top of your head, do you know what it is?
The override.
The override.
The total levy override could possibly be a little different than the per mile,
Right.
but it's right around 500 and some thousand.
517, I think.
518, I believe.
518.
So the whole thing is in the highway?
Yes, yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, this was a request for a variance to be able to build on an interior lot 96 feet wide where there is 150-foot required. And I have to say, this was very complicated, and we discussed it amongst our plan commission and with Attorney Dahl for a long time. And as such, we came full circle. Mike Barkey was present at the meeting and was very helpful. He lives near the property and gave us a lot of insight as to some of the history of it and some of the buildings on it. And in the end, we had a split decision, and I'm glad Peter wants to speak on it because he, I'm sure has a lot to add. It was a decision of 4-3 to deny it. And the reasons that those who voted to deny were they did not feel that the 3 criteria for variance were met. The law states that any hardship does not have to be one that it's by any owner or any previous owner. And because the property was split in 1976, which postdated zoning, even though it was missed, it was created illegally and should never have had a building on it in the first place. However, the county takes the position that if something has been missed for more than 10 years, they let it go. They don't follow up and say, I'm sorry, you have to remove the structure, we've discovered it now. And secondly, those who voted to deny felt that it was not a unique property situation because there are other properties in the area that are small and they're on the escarpment as well. And we did not feel that the applicant met the test of no harm to the public interest, since adding on in that area would require significant removal of trees and perhaps blasting into the escarpment and extra runoff, all of the things that go along with building. So there were also some persuasive arguments amongst the commissioners that felt that we should either give it a pass and make no decision or grant the variance. And it was as close as it could be with a 4-3 vote.
Okay, Peter?
Yeah, the primary thing that I felt on this was, and it was considered by the Plan Commission for many years to be predating zoning, that these parcels at 96 feet had been considered buildable. And so then zoning came along and said, you know, you need 150 feet. The reason why I say that, and I think maybe that's why the Plan Commission did that, because one piece there was recorded as a deed, that I think that's, I can't quite see. It's the piece that's directly west of this on the shore is 96 foot wide, and supposedly it had a piece on it, but not actually, because the house was actually on the other property. So it was, it's a little strange the way this whole thing fell out. But my feeling is that at the time of zoning, these were considered to be buildable lots at 96 feet wide. Now, unfortunately, only that one was recorded. So now when we come to the present situation, they're saying, well, it was never recorded, so they were never really buildable. You know, zoning was put in, and since it wasn't recorded, now you need 150 feet. And my feeling is we should accept the fact that all the people that owned those lots considered them buildable. Plan Commission considered them buildable up until just recently. And so my feeling is that we should be a little bit more supportive of allowing them the variance to go ahead and build on this property.
Any questions? Okay. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Peter summed up very well, I think, why we were struggling with this. It is a very close call. I thought counsel for the Han Trust did an excellent job in trying to muster, and marshal, I should say, as much of the facts as possible. But I think the fact that we would have to speculate about the post-dating and predating of the zoning was the thing that I think tipped the balance, rather than any hard evidence that could exist that it predated the zoning. That's what I think has swayed my opinion more than anything. And like I say, council did a very good job, but unfortunately, there was not anything that we can rely on other than speculating about whether this predated or post-dated the zoning. Did I get that right? I think too.
Well, the recording of this one piece did predate zoning, and that was 96 feet wide. Not this piece that we're referring to now, but
The little piece on the shore.
the piece on the shore was 96 feet. And it appears like all the rest of the property, everybody considered them to be 96 foot wide, but not recorded on a deed.
And like like Lou said, that's where we had the problem. There is no concrete evidence that this particular piece, the one for which the variance was requested, we had nothing but speculation really to go on. It's kind of an inference. And the county zoning has been in place since 1967. There is a structure on the property already. And one of the things that caused us consternation about this is that under county zoning, if the lot were to be declared buildable, and that's what the applicant was asking for, just for the lot to be declared buildable so that they could sell it. They didn't have any plans. We couldn't even ask, what do you plan to do with this, or have any control over that. Once it's declared buildable, they can, as long as they meet the setbacks, they can put up whatever they want that meets the setbacks and the height, and also, above and beyond that, they would be allowed a 750 square foot accessory structure or built-on structure with full living quarters per county ordinance. And at that point in time, as Mike Barkey said, when he was telling us all the things that were going on the property, that's getting really crowded. There's a driveway that goes through there already that's shared. There is an accessory building, a small tool shed / garage. There is the cottage that's there with a very good sized deck, cantilevered out over the Niagara Escarpment. We just felt we would not have, if we declared it buildable, those of us who voted to deny, would not have any control over what was going to happen to that small lot that never really was buildable by county law.
It was buildable prior to 64 though, right?
It would have been.
Would have been.
Right,
Yeah.
but according to Rick Brower, the only date they have on that property is 1976.
And the only piece that was recorded prior to zoning was that little piece on the shore.
Right, there's a little tiny piece that, I don't even know how wide it is. I mean, nothing could be built on it, just inky dinky little piece.
Yeah, but it's 96 foot, it's 96
Wide,
foot
yeah.
wide, yeah.
Okay. I've got a quick question. Rick, on his letter to Dan Mortier, said the property cannot be considered buildable, but he suggested then to ask for a variance.
Kick it
That's in
down
the
the
third
road to Liberty
paragraph.
Grove.
Okay. But what's before us tonight is a request for a variance? No.
No, but, well, yeah,
Yes, yes,
It
it
is.
is. Yes,
Okay,
it's the plan commission is making its recommendation, which, as I said, was very close in its decision. And it's up to the board to make its recommendation to the Board of
Right.
Adjustment.
And I see there was a discussion about granting the variance with conditions.
Yes,
can't do that.
it was suggested conditions.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not-
suggested,
not
okay.
necessary, but just
All right.
suggested, yeah.
Okay, anybody else have a question?
Somebody else want to talk on it?
Mike, please. Thank you, Peter.
I'm Mike Barkey, and my wife and I, Sally, live at 12647 Door Bluff Road, so we're directly to the south of the Geraldine Hahn Trust property that's requesting the variance. All due respect to Peter, I think we have to deal with the here and now, not what happened 30 years ago. I think it's important to look at the property as it stands right now. I know that members of the Plan Commission visited the property, did a site visit. I don't know if anybody here on the board has had a chance to look at it, but I think my contribution at the Plan Commission meeting was to bring to the attention of the committee members some of the oddities that exist on that piece of property, and I'd just like to point those out to you because I think it bears impacts on your decision when you vote here. There are actually two different pieces of property there, as have been discussed. There's a very narrow strip across the front of the property on the water's edge. It's 1/4 of an acre according to, if you look at the map that you have, 10-7, that little strip 21G. Between 21G and 21I, there's a small cabin about 500 square feet that straddles that property. There's also a shed, has been mentioned, there's a well, there's also a septic system. Both the well and the septic system were put in about 3 years ago. That septic system probably is sufficient for a one-bedroom. I think that's how they based the septic system. So if somebody were to build on that lot, they would have to either remove, I think, that one-bedroom septic system, mound system, and expand it or some other way, so that's there. The other thing that doesn't come out very frequently in the discussion of that property is that there's a horseshoe-shaped driveway that runs between 21D2 across the property around 21G where that line is, and then across 21H, and it runs up between 21C and 21H. That driveway has common access to 4 different property owners. Mary Warner, who has property 21D2, has access to the road on the south side along with the Hahn property. It runs through the McGrath property, which is 21H. They have access to it. And then 21C, I think it's the Walzer property. They have shared access with the McGrath's 21H. So I guess what I'd like to bring to your attention is that there's some really unique and odd things to that property. And if somebody was to build on that property, it's very narrow to begin with, but with the additional driveway on the south side and setbacks, it makes it an even narrower lot. So I guess what I'm saying to you is that I hope that you concur with the Plan Commission with their decision to reject the variance because it does not meet 2 of the 3 criteria that the Plan Commission uses in making their decision. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Mike. Okay, board?
I'll make a comment if I may, please.
Sure.
I went down there and visited the property today to see what it was like and to get a feeling for it. And it is quite small, but I'd like to point out, if you look at the map that came with your packet today, if you look at it, 60% of these lots are less than 150 feet. So it's not something that's coming out of the blue, that it's every lot along there is compliant to 150 feet. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, I mean, there's a whole bunch of them there that are the 98 feet wide. And if you follow you couldn't build anything that didn't meet the Door County standards. So in other words, I believe it's a 20-foot side yard setback on each side there. It's SF30 or SF20. And so that's a 20-yard side yard. And then you have to be set back from the driveway. The driveway wouldn't be able to move if all these people are using it. That's probably the driveway that's in place that will not be moved. So it would limit the amount of building that could go on there. The septic system looks fairly new. I didn't look for the well. But this is something that, Door County, the planning department should have caught this when it would happen in '76. And so now what we're doing is penalizing the people who own this property for a mistake the county actually made. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. And so I don't think that allowing a variance on this property for someone to build would add anything, even a slight amount to the harm to the public interest there. It's developed already. It has a cottage on it. So it's probably, if whoever bought that could build a very small cottage there, it would probably be obviously winterized. And I think it would be appropriate to grant a variance there. So maybe what I'll do is I'll make a motion we grant a variance.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion?
Yes. If this had come to the Plan Commission as a new owner who wanted a variance to build a specific structure that we could put conditions on or that we could see would fit compatibly with the other structures in the area, I think it might have been a different outcome. But what we're being asked to do is simply declare the lot buildable so the current owner can sell it. And under those circumstances, the largest possible that can be built according to county ordinance could be put in on that very substandard lot, which really isn't even buildable. And for me, that was the critical thing, was not knowing. Somebody comes to us with plans that we can help shape and make it work, I think we could be a lot more lenient. But just simply blanketly declaring it buildable, I think is risky.
And also, though, I had found out that, for example, when adjacent property owners, one of whom shares that horseshoe-shaped driveway, when they purchased their 96-foot wide lot, they were told by their realtor that they would not be able to build on that lot because it's not buildable. In other words, they bought an existing structure, but were told that that lot was not buildable. And I think there's where the, I think there's where the seller, the trust would need to be able to market that piece of property in such a way that the subsequent buyer would not be led to believe that anything goes on that lot. Like Nancy said, it was something that we were speculating about and then trying to put conditions on and realized that there was no way that we can go that far and still make it not against public interest that way as well.
Are there buildings on those other lots?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you talking about 21H, that lot?
Just to the north, it would be.
21H.
So that's developed. There's development on either, both sides of that. In fact, there's a cottage on the
Yes,
property
that's the
right now.
cottage they purchased.
How about 23B and C? I assume those are the ones you were referring to earlier? They're,
G is that little tiny thing in the bottom.
no, B. B and C. You made a comment earlier that there were several lots that,
I guess I don't follow you, John, I'm sorry.
if you go,
Oh, B and C, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Those are all tiny lots down there.
and do they have structures on them?
I have no idea.
Mike?
You're asking 21B and 21C,
Yes.
I believe are part of Camp Zion, because.
Oh, okay.
21C is the Walser Nelson property, I believe everything north of that then is Camp Zion, as well as across the private road, 21A1, that 13.45 acres is Camp Zion, and then it swings around to the north there, I think 21B.
Okay.
and that.
And how about 23B, C?
23B.
To the south.
C, yes, there are buildings on those
Okay.
properties, yes.
See, I don't think you can't put conditions on something like this, but the road and the side yard setbacks are the conditions that would prevent someone from building a big mega mansion there. And yes, they could, Nancy, build a garage further up the road if they wanted to. Up to 749 square feet.
I don't necessarily look at it as penalizing someone. I kind of look at it like, since 1967, this was an unbuildable lot since Door County zoning took over, and they're lucky to have what they have.
I think we're penalizing the people for a mistake that the planning department made.
If the building, if they can remodel the building, am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's solid.
Okay, any other discussion anybody has? We have a motion on the floor to grant the request for the variance. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. It's a 3-2. I believe we'll need a motion the other way then.
So we have,
It would,
Motion failed.
the
Mulligan.
variance was denied, but I think you want to make a motion to send to county.
I would make a motion that the town board recommend to the Board of Adjustment denial of the Han variance for the following reasons. That the request does not meet the criteria of physical limitations. Other lots in the area are similar. It does not meet no harm to the public interest for purposes of runoff and degradation of the environment and habitat. And that the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed, albeit perhaps by a previous owner, but it is self-imposed.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Well, I think, I mean, obviously, we know which way the vote's gonna go, but clearly the runoff and stuff like that is controllable by any sort of building things. I think it's sort of duplicate. I just don't think you need to include that in the motion.
What if they need to blast a basement?
We're talking about runoff now.
I said degradation of the environment.
Okay, any other comments, questions? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries 3-2. Okay, going on to item number 11. Consider a resolution to persuade Door County, county parks to keep town informed regarding tree issues in Door Bluff headlands. And we have a resolution. I'll read that, and I'm not going to make this as a motion at this point in time, but so that everybody knows what we're talking about. Whereas, and this would be Resolution 1114, whereas in order to protect the financial interests of the town of Liberty Grove in a newly paved road, and whereas to honor the heritage of property donated by renowned landscape architect Jens Jensen, therefore be it hereby resolved, the Liberty Grove Town Board respectfully requests to be included as part of the conversation regarding the possible removal of ash trees in Door Bluff Headlands County Park. Okay, there were a number of people that wanted to talk on this, I believe. Mike, please.
Well, again, I live in the area of the Headlands Park. I walk in the park regularly, several times a week. And it's a pristine park, as you know. It was developed by Jens Jensen and Sid Telfer and others in the late 40s. Part of the park was created because of donations of people, residents in the area, some with stipulations that it was supposed to be undeveloped. There's very little development in the park. There's a road in, there's a circle, a kiosk, a porta potty, and a couple of trails in the woods. I think that was the intent, to keep that park as pristine and as natural as possible. Now we've got the Emerald Ash Board to deal with, and as you know, it's been documented in the county, but not yet in Headlands Park, although it's quite possible that it's there. I've been to the county meetings, the park committee, park department, they want to take down most of the ash trees there. There's some discrepancy as to whether they'll take 1/3 of the trees now and 1/3 in the future or whatever. But if they take those trees, and in some portions of the park, it's almost 50% of the trees. There are also beech trees that are there, and they're suffering from American beech bark blight, so they'll probably take those. But going in there and mucking around is really going to cause a lot of issues there. One of the problems is that it's going to open it up to invasive species to come in. The other thing is it's going to upset the wildlife that's there. There's also an eagle's nest on the bluff there. There may be other nests, and ironically, the eagle's nest is in an ash tree in the park. People are questioning the need to do it, but I think the impact is that that park is part of the town of Liberty Grove. I know it's a county park, but it's a big part of why people come to Liberty Grove. It's a beautiful park, especially this time of the year. If you take a drive in there and you look at the color and the trees. And I think it would be a shame to have those trees removed. And of course, when they remove them, they're going to have to cut new logging trails to remove them, bring them out to the camp road, and then bring them down one of the town roads. And whether that's Garrett Bay Road, East Door Bluff Road, or Door Bluff Road to Maplewood, those trucks, we've been told, weigh around 100,000 pounds. That's going to beat up a new Garrett Bay Road pretty quickly, even in the winter, and hopefully we'll have a winter, I guess, if you're gonna be a logger, that it'll be cold enough to come out on Garrett Bay Road. But if not, the trucks are gonna come down East Door Bluff Road and Door Bluff Road. So I would hope that the town board would, keep a finger on the pulse here as far as what's going on, because, all of us, I guess, scraped to get some money to pave Garrett Bay Road, put down new asphalt, and it would be a shame, after all the work, to bring that money together and doing a nice job with the road, to see it beat up like that. So I would encourage you in any way to be up to date on what's going on there, and you may even want to go so far as to take a position as a town board on the ash tree cutting as well as the removal and how it's done. So one other question I have before I finish. Bud, is it necessary for the loggers to obtain a permit to use those roads for an overload permit?
If the town feels that there will be damage to the road, in order to protect the road, a weight limit could be put on in certain instances.
So it's quite possible, if you really wanted to, you could prevent them from, they'd have to airlift the logs out of there rather than take them by truck.
Yeah,
I mean, if you wanted to be
we have a
nasty.
legal opinion that a town setting a weight limit on a town road, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Carl?
I'm gonna pass for
Okay. Susan?
I'm gonna pass too.
Your ball, Jim.
Okay. Jim Moronic, East Door Bluff Road. The way this agenda item is written is kind of puzzling. It seems to be a no-brainer. Why wouldn't the town want to be intimately involved in what's going on with the County Parks Committee regarding one of the treasures that's in this town? Of course, you want to have communication. It's puzzling why you are resolving to persuade the county parks to keep the town informed. Is there a problem?
There has been. There has been, yes.
You've asked for information and it's been refused?
We've asked to be kept in the loop, and we're not, several times.
Yeah.
I personally spoke to 3 separate people from County Parks and Airports and from Buzz Verley, Chuck Brand, and Eric, and asked, will you let us know when you're going to be discussing this? And nothing until their last meeting, when they made pretty much
Can
most.
you speculate on a reason why that should be?
The only thing I can think of is there were posted meetings, and perhaps they just felt we should keep up with their meeting agendas, and that's valid. But I had asked them personally to let us know, and they didn't, so this.
Well, I just need to say that I found that the Parks Committee, the County Parks Committee, to be totally transparent, cooperative. They do excellent research, they respond promptly to questions, they provide documents. They've been great, so I'm puzzled at this, and certainly,
So you find this inflammatory, or you think that they're doing a good job already, or?
I think they're doing a good job of communicating,
Yeah.
yes. And that's what you're asking for in this agenda item, right, is
So I read it.
openness and communication. So I'm saying that we have found them to be perfectly open and communicative, and it puzzles me to think that it might be otherwise. But on that topic, in addition to being informed, I wish the town, you supervisors, would take a position on the issue of whether or not 100% of the ash trees should be cut down. Taking the pulse of what I hear, there are very few people who are in favor of that. And among them is one person purporting to represent the DNA, saying that all of the trees should be cut down as soon as possible, and in 3 stages, but 100% of the ash trees. DNR, I'm sorry. One of those acronyms.
This is what the DNA has said through the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection and the Wisconsin EAB Strategic Plan. It is not necessary to cut all ash trees prior to EAB being found in the local area or even after it is established. Drastic reductions in the ash component can lead to ecological disruption, lowering income due to market flooding, and in residential areas, difficulties removing the cut trees. Removing all of the ash prior to finding EAB is not recommended, as ash can continue to be a timber or ornamental tree and continue to provide benefits for wildlife. Well, if that's the DNR's position, I think it ought to be the town's position and the county park's position, and I think other options should be explored. I hope this town will take a proactive stance on that.
That was written by DADCAP, Department of Ag Trade.
That came from Wisconsin EAB Strategic Plan, and the website is a long one, but it's wisconsin.gov EAB article Assets, Wisconsin EAB Strategic Plan PDF, updated May 2014, along with the DNR and the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection, and the Wisconsin Cooperative EAB Program. So there's a bunch of agencies and opinions in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol? I think that's it, right?
I'd like to just distribute something for you to read tonight when you go to bed. This will keep you out of trouble. Thank you. The last two copies are, and I had a copy made for Janet and Bud as well, except I apologize for having to work back there at the table, but I'm pretty stressed out because I had gone to the copy store today to have some things made, and unfortunately, all the numbering got screwed up, so you will have to check the bottom numbers on the pages, and some of them actually never got printed at all, so thank goodness Janet made a copy for me today, which is correct, and it's in the back office. What this is, and I'll explain that in a minute, but I want to start where I was going to, and that is, I wanted to thank you, again, I wanted to thank you for putting this relevant issue on the agenda. However, as Jim stated, I was puzzled by the wording also, and that is asking them to keep you informed. I had no idea, Nancy, that you were having a problem with them, because the person we've been talking with mostly is Eric Allison, and he has been very cooperative, as has his secretary Denise, and have sent us information, and we've had very reasonable talks with them on the phone, one of which was to agree, I asked Mr. Allison when the written proposal by the DNR was going to be given to them so that they could actually approve the final plan, and he said he knew of no such plan to have a written proposal of how this was going to be done, what was going to be done, and so forth, and what the ramifications could be. I mean, it's very, very complicated project that they're about to embark on, and I was shocked and told him I was, and that I'm sure the whole town would be shocked to know that there was no written plan, that the DNR were just gonna go in there and do what they were gonna do without anybody knowing how it was gonna turn out, what their steps would be, and what things they would be watching out for, and so forth. He agreed to ask them for a written proposal, and he also said that if anyone wished to make suggestions to him as to what you would like the DNR to include in the proposal, that he would be very open to receiving your information and to pass it on to the DNR. And I tried to talk with him today, but he was at a meeting and I was not able to. He's hopefully going to call me back tomorrow. But so far, he's been cooperative. I have been puzzled
as to why it didn't seem as if this board was taking a stand on this, because I know I heard them, we all heard them in March say, we want to do what the town wants us to do. And they even waited until summer in order to have their meetings, so that more people would be able to have some input. So I was assuming that you were having, I know Nancy and Frank, I believe, went down to a meeting in June and reported on it. And you reported on some things at our association's annual meeting, but I wish, as Jim stated, that you would discuss your position on this issue this evening, because I frankly felt, there were several of us at the meeting in August, and it was very obvious to us that there are several people in that committee who really did not want to move ahead this quickly. Several of them, one of them even said, let's wait until we see if there are actually borers in the park, and then let's make a decision what to do. And every time anybody in that committee tried to make an effort to work against or speak against the DNR, Chris's presentation, he aggressively said no. I mean, he put them down. They just backed off, and finally they agreed that they were going to do it, but they were going to do it in stages. I think there are some members of that committee who are very open to considering a reversal or a change of that opinion, and I think that's a strong effort on your part as a board, if you really care about saving this beautiful treasure of ours, that they would be very willing to listen, and I think it could go a long way in changing their mind, because I really feel that there are a lot of guys on that committee who do not really want to move ahead with this. At any rate, one of the things I wanted to just finish with was that one of the things that Chris said when asked, well, what will the park look like after the work is done? He said it'll look like a war zone. And we know exactly that is very true. The ash trees are all going to come down. There's going to be a lot of other little stuff that'll be left. And if you take a look at Hastings property, which was done there was a forest management project done there. The work that was done by the DNR on Clark Road, County Park Road, it is devastating. This is what our park is going to look like, but it could even be worse. And the reason I got this material together to give you is that this is really from our old files of when we were working to try to get the Parks Committee to not allow the proposed horse trails in this very same park. One of the things that we had done was we asked them if they would do a environmental impact study, which they did. They stopped all the action of the people who were starting to already develop the horse trails, and they engaged the services of Mike Grimm from the Nature Conservancy. I believe Terry Cooper was involved, and there are other people who were colleagues of his, environmental experts, who spent a year doing a study of the park, and then presented that information on July of 2007, orally. And I just talked with Mike Grimm, or my husband did today. I left a message for him. We asked him for the written version of that report. The upshot is that it's not so much, I mean, there are some native species of flora that could be damaged, but more importantly, what they discovered was, because of it being in the escarpment area, the soil is very, very thin. The roots are very close to the surface. The action of all of those vehicles, the machines that cut the trees as well as the logs that remove them, could just totally devastate not just the ash trees, but all the many, many of the other trees as well. And that is what their study said, and that you can read it for yourself. I have an article in the back here that was published following the verbal report, where they said that the horse trail is not a good idea. Well, if horse trail is not a good idea, we certainly do not want to have all these vehicles in and out of that park, rolling over and cutting the roots of those trees, which will eventually die as well. And we will be left with nothing. So Tomorrow, we are expecting the email version of the formal report that Mike is emailing to us, which I will get to you. But I do have an overview of the report that we were present at when he did make the oral presentation in July of 2007. But in addition to that, one of the most wonderful things that happened in this whole process was that Jude Genero discovered, in talking with Mike Schneider of the Clearing, that Jens Jensen had printed something in his book. I believe it's the Jens Jensen I know or knew. But in addition to that, they found in the files of the bowels of the center that that there were minutes from 1945, beginning 1945 until 1950, of the decision that the county board had made, the Parks Committee had made, was under the directorship at that point, ironically, of Tom Pinney, who was the father of George. And they decided that they wanted to identify 2 parks in Northern Door that would be sanctuaries and would not be disturbed and would be left that way for posterity. And this document, which was something that Jude copied and placed on his desk, said, read this and please decide after you read it not to let your plan go through, because the park will be totally different than what it was when it was developed the way it was supposed to be, and that is a pristine sanctuary to be left and never ever changed in any way by the human hand or wheels or blades. So I would love it if you would read this. This document is highlighted. It must have been highlighted in yellow, so you'll see that area is gray. Some of you have pages missing.
Carol,
I will give you the total one, and thank you for please allowing me to have this much time. I know I've gone over, but as you can tell, I'm very passionate about this, and I hope you will be too after you've read this.
yes,
And
we
I will
did
fill
exceed
in-
the 3-mile-an-hour
I know.
speed limit. So.
I will fill in the empty pages.
Okay.
Janet, I'm sure I'll give you those tomorrow, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay,
I'd just like to respond. It may give you some comfort to know that we have asked, as a town board, to be on the November 3rd agenda to discuss back and forth with the Parks and Airport Committee this issue. And all I can say is, we hear what you're saying, I hear what you're saying, and personally, I personally think that it would be nice if the county would treat the park in the spirit that it was donated by Jens Jensen. However, if they decide, after hearing eloquent argument or eloquent persuasion, I am prepared to accept whatever decision they come to without rancor. And it may be hard. I'm hoping that's not the case, and I'm hoping that, we can make some inroads. But we'll see. We are going to discuss it with them.
Will it be at the airport,
Frank?
will it be here?
It'll be at the airport at their November 3rd, 9 a.m.
Frank?
meeting.
I was at the meeting when the Parks Committee first followed the DNR request to do the tree removal of all the ash trees in the park. And they postponed the vote till the next meeting. I talked to some of the members after the meeting. I think the position was clear. I was shocked when the vote came out in favor of supporting the DNR request that those trees be removed. I'm not happy with the wording of the resolution we're considering now. I would like to see that letter say that the town, and I have, to ask the county parks to reconsider and reverse their approval of the DNR request to remove all ash trees from the Door Bluff Park, and to keep us advised beforehand of everything regarding this situation. I think the people I've talked to, I haven't seen anybody in favor of essentially devastating that park. To get the equipment in there, you're gonna kill all the trees that are coming up of other species. Once things are exposed, the wind comes in through there for the remaining trees, they're gonna go. The wind velocity increases by as much as 30% as it comes out from the northwest and hits the edge of that bluff and blows through that park. There was a lot of trees damaged in September 3 years ago. Those have been all taken out, and I suppose some lumber company went in there and hauled them out and got them. What happened to the money, we don't know. As far as I can see, Algoma Lumber was the people that did the one down at the park, and it looks like World War II going through the Ardennes. It's a mess, and I think this board should stand up and tell the parks to reverse their decision and to keep us informed.
I agree with everything that's been said as well. I think it's more than a shame that anything like that has to happen tonight and over the past months. My assumption, I thought, when we composed the resolution, was that there was no final decision on that matter yet. That was still wavering as to what the authorities who have control over the situation would do. And strategically, it seemed more prudent to be continued to be involved in the discussions than to just show our hand, which is pretty obvious that I think everybody's in agreement that we'd prefer that not to happen, at least not in one fell swoop, but rather, if need be, in small increments as the trees become more diseased. When you pull out a gun and you're not prepared to use it, you better not pull out the gun. And it seems that our just stating categorically that we are in favor of a much less drastic approach shows our hand, but the question remains then, what do we do if the powers that have control of the situation continue to whatever they're going to do? I mean, I don't think that anything short of civil disobedience is an option, so to speak.
Seek an injunction?
Legal fees. Could be. I mean, there could be an injunction, perhaps, yeah. But again, we have to think those things through. And what those things are right now have to be considered as well, I think. It's totally agreed. An injunction might help. Restraining order, temporarily at least anyway.
Weight limits on the road.
And
They can't get anything out.
Well,
But that being said, they're gonna go ahead? We don't know that, do we?
No, when I spoke to Chuck last week about, and then to Biz Verley about getting on the agenda, Chuck indicated that it's really not a done deal yet, and he didn't go into detail, but what I think Carol had said makes a lot of sense, that there was enough hesitation on the committee that, you know, there might be an opening there, I don't know. But I very agree with Lou that just being there at the meeting and having a respectful conversation, especially if there are some people on the committee who are not comfortable with harvesting the trees right now, could have a benefit rather than digging in our heels right away and saying, you know, reverse your decision, we don't want this, or talking about injunction. Let's not be abrasive. You know, maybe I'm being naive, but I think we can make some inroads by discussing it.
May I just take if it was me, I'd just say leave the trees alone, and when they die, and when they fall, they fall. I mean, that would be my position. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Is that pretty much your position, Lou?
Absolutely.
Mine is a little more moderate. I guess what I would like to see is if there are trees that are very obviously potential safety issue on the trails or on the road, I would say remove them. And then let the rest, in the spirit that the land was donated by Jensen in perpetuity to be a sanctuary, let the rest go.
So it's basically the same thing.
Basically the same, but safety first, you know, not just blanketly don't cut down any trees. If there's something that looks to be a safety issue, I think it's our duty, and it's not our duty, it's the county's duty. That's the overriding thing of the whole thing. It belongs to the county. You know, it's really not our property. Yes, it's in Liberty Grove, but how, you know, and here again, I don't want to be abrasive because it really isn't ours, it's theirs. All we can do is suggest and try and persuade and hope that it makes a difference.
This subject came up several years ago, actually, another committee I was on in the county. And turns out the clear cutting of the ash tree is a fairly ineffective way to prevent the spread of it. In fact, the state of Michigan has said, don't do it anymore. And so I just don't see anything positive in the position they're taking.
What do you think is the motive, Hugh? I mean, I
I
read
have
in
no
the
idea.
Carroll County Daily News how much the DNR has earned by selling the wood that they've, now, and I'm not suggesting that it's for profit only, that there must be, you know, an agricultural or forestry reason for taking the wood that they are selling, but that this year was a bumper crop, let's say. And that does seem somewhat opportunistic on the DNR's part to say, well, maybe the wood is more valuable to us and we could sort of continue to make more profit. But then, you know, there are obviously some other forestry reasons, but I agree as well, if it's not the absolute solution, why bother going ahead to do it other than perhaps profit, perhaps?
Well, I don't know if you saw Mike Schneider's recent letter, but he had talked to both Bill Ruff and to Jeff Krause from Algoma Lumber. And Jeff Krause's been in the business now, he's second generation. He's also my cousin, and he knows what he's talking about. And Bill Ruff is
Forester.
Yeah, forever. And again, someone that I've known for a long time as well. So I thought he used really good sources. And Bill Ruff was in total agreement that it's not necessary to cut them all down. And what I found interesting was Jeff's comment, as a lumberman, that the ash trees can be perfectly good lumber even when they're dead. He said once the bark starts coming off them, then they're degraded down to the point of, well, they're probably best as number 3 lumber or firewood. But he said he could look at a stand of timber and, you know, that's what he would have to do to make that assessment, but that it's perfectly feasible that there can be some ash trees that are essentially dead, but still absolutely viable as lumber. And then there are others that are dead and are pretty much firewood. Has to be on a case-by-case basis. But, you know, here again, it opens the avenue for conversation. You know, do you really have to do this on a wholesale basis?
Is the DNR pushing for total removal?
Yeah.
This was very clear at the meeting where the DNR proposal was submitted, and I was there and I heard it. And it was my understanding by
How many
reading.
months ago is that?
This was, we were down there together, when, in July?
Yeah, I think it
July,
was.
yeah, this is quite,
Is this the one at Crossroads?
no, this is out at the airport.
Oh, okay, yep, okay. You know, and that's another thing, this has been unfolding ever since, you know, ever since it wasn't even in Door County, when it was close in Green Bay, you know, and we were talking about it. And then, you know, there was more and more information coming out. By the time we got down to the seminar at Crossroads, some DNR people and some of the foresters were saying, you've got options. You
That's
can
right.
cut them, you can leave them, you can do a little of both. And I think, sort of like this whole Ebola thing, there's stuff unfolding on a daily and weekly basis as far as what is the best road to take. And being part of the conversation, I think, is of utmost importance.
No, I think it's nice to get along with Parks Committee, but I think we have to let them know, and if we're gonna give them something, now, I think we ought to let them know we disagree with the DNR request, very clearly.
We don't, but if you follow what Nancy has just said, I'm not sure that there's an agreement at the level of the DNR that they're gonna do anything.
The request was such, and it was.
The
my
request
clear-
was,
Yes.
but that is changing.
And at the next meeting, they voted on it to approve that request.
And
They voted and
Carol,
it was passed.
Carol,
Excuse me.
There's a difference of opinion here of what happened. And I think maybe we should table this and find out exactly what happened before we wade in with something that's not true and
Well-
complete and firm.
The meeting is on the 3rd, and that's in just a couple of weeks. And that's where the conversation is going to begin and continue, hopefully. And it just seems to me that you can get a lot more accomplished, a lot more harmoniously, if you're sitting at a table looking at someone and saying, this is how we feel, instead of doing a resolution. We'll know probably by the end of that meeting which way the wind is blowing. Maybe we will need to explore stiffer options that the town has, or maybe not.
Well, if there's a meeting, why even pass a resolution tonight?
I agree with Frank, just let it go.
I would be okay with
But
that
boy, I'm
too.
gonna be there,
Oh, yeah.
and they're gonna hear from me.
I think it's good to be on record, though. We have
Yeah.
an interest, a
Yep.
financial
Yeah,
interest
that's
in that
true.
road. That is one of the cards that we could play. It is done now. The road was not done until just a matter of weeks ago. That road is done. We have a financial interest. I don't see the harm of the resolution. We're on record now of being concerned about the road, about the retaining the pristine nature of the park, and wanting to continue to be in the dialogue. And that is I think, the most effective way of being able to express what we want to express about
Yeah.
that park,
Well, and
without drawing a fine line or a bright line in the sand, which sometimes then is dared to cross. And I think that's a dangerous strategy to follow, when in fact dialogue can still maybe prevail.
See, I think the Moronics have demonstrated they're willing to be communicative. I just don't think that we have a communication problem right now that would require something like this.
Well. like
I mean,
we
I've always
said,
found Eric to answer a question immediately whenever
Oh,
I call
yeah,
him.
yes, and he's been probably the best to answer questions, but when I was down at the meeting that Frank referred to, I asked Chuck Brand, please, let us know when this is going to be on the agenda again, because at the time, it wasn't on every single agenda. And then at the seminar at the Crossroads, I asked Biz Verley, will you please make sure that we're kept in the loop whenever this is coming up, because we want to weigh in, we want to hear what's going on, hopefully be a part of it. And in neither case I gave them my email address, I gave them my phone number, and it didn't happen. And my bad for not bird dogging the agendas that were online at the county. I'll take that much responsibility, but I have enough trouble keeping track of the Liberty Grove agendas that I'm part of. I don't think it's hurtful at all to just
We're
go
ask-
on record to be kept in the loop.
we're asking them to allow us to be part of the conversation. They're not gonna turn that down.
Well, not be a part of it, we're saying here simply in black and white to keep the town informed. That's an after-the-effect thing.
No, we're asking to be included as part of the conversation. That's what the resolution says.
Consider resolution to persuade county parks to keep town informed.
Here is the resolution.
Oh, okay, you're talking about the resolution.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm talking about the
You're talking about the
agenda.
agenda, yeah.
So what we're doing is on one level, saying we want to be a part of this, and on the other level, saying we have a deep concern of what that conversation may lead to. That's the subliminal, if you will.
I think it's a gentle way
Yep.
of starting the dialogue.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 1114 as presented.
I'll second that.
Could you read that, please?
Sure. Resolution 1114, Door Bluff Headlines participation. Whereas in order to protect the financial interests of the town of Liberty Grove and a newly paved road, and whereas to honor the heritage of property donated by renowned landscape architect Jens Jensen, therefore be it hereby resolved, the Liberty Grove Town Board respectfully requests to be included as part of the conversation regarding the possible removal of ash trees in Door Bluff Headlands County Park. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Roll call?
Who seconded?
Oh, resolution,
I
roll
did.
call? Yeah, no,
No,
resolution not. Well, let's, roll call. Go.
Mulligan,
I'll tell you what. Aye.
Borkert,
I'm gonna say nay.
Goss,
Aye.
Cavazos,
Aye.
Lowry,
Aye.
carries 4-1.
Okay.
But it doesn't pass a unanimous vote.
Right. Okay, going on to number 12, consider request to use fire station Sagbra camping. Where are we here?
Can we have a 5-minute break, John?
Sure.
Please.
You consolidate 12 and 13.
Yeah.
Huh?
Well,
I don't have to pee. I
we're
got
gonna take a
phone call
5-minute
to
break.
answer.
We're handing out tickets for the restrooms.
Put in pay toilets.
House Survey 101.
Who's after Susan here? I can't read my writing. Jim Ronick here. Who's that? Who's that after Susie?
Yeah, very much so.
Who was out there? Who was out there? Who was out there? Who could else?
And I understand what the other ones do.
Who was here?
It's Jewel. Jewel Rednick.
Are you here on the Sagbra? Okay, that's what I kind of figured, but, okay. We're coming up next on that one.
Right. What is it that you want?
Well, an explanation of what
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 it
is
is?
being requested.
Oh, okay.
And there is a conflict with the town hall on that night requested,
Oh, is that right?
but we got the community center as an alternative. Now, obviously, it's not quite as big, but
Nobody's really answered your question.
Well, I mean, you know,
What do we do?
I'm only, you know, involved in that, I've been
right.
on it, and I know the people.
I don't think it's a problem.
You make a bright line in the sand and
Logistically, it's a little more difficult at the community center.
Right, yeah, well, and, you know, we were always thinking that the ladies' club,
inevitable to say, you know what,
that's
I'm gonna show you.
not the possible. The ladies' club,
And
The which one?
and the ladies' club at Allison Bay.
Well, I'm calling that the community
Oh,
center.
okay, yeah. And that would be preferred, actually, than here.
you
Okay.
know, but.
That's a better setting.
Well, yeah, it keeps the people in town.
Yes.
The idea, and
That's
the
a good
idea
point.
was to keep them in town and to have the use or to offer the lodging right there
Yeah,
too.
right there.
If people,
Good point.
people that didn't want to camp. So,
Yeah, I don't think the camping is a problem if there's fire.
yeah.
From what-
Yeah, well, you know, it would be nice if they could, it's camping time too, but
Yeah.
that requires more, I mean, that's, but if that would be better, you know, I mean, I think it would be better because it would be better for the town.
Yeah.
To keep all the people there and, you know, because then they can walk out for coffee and,
Yeah.
you know, and you can walk in for, the restaurants and stuff like that, and you've got, you know, two that can do that, so,
But at the
I was in
community
favor of it.
center for out camping is probably,
I
there are
did
too many campers.
Well, but if you had both sites, if you had, the fire station and
Well, that's a
that,
thought.
then you can have the people that wanna be involved that way, and then the people that wanna go north the next day, they might wanna be out of town anyway. See, because I mean, there are, you know, because it's a group, there are different people that wanna do different things. And there are some people that would like to be in town to mingle, and then there'd be other people that say, you know, they're up there just riding, and they wanna go to the island the next day, and, you know,
Yes,
they're
but
in
the
bed
minute
early
you
and
go
up
down
early
that
and
road, you get
get up there and go do
It
their
is
thing,
not
so
it
it kind
belongs to the
of
county.
makes it so that
We
you can
could argue
split the
it's
group,
within
so
our
it's not
boundaries.
such an impact
Sure.
at any one place.
Okay.
So, you want me to say something?
Well, I think it's, the gentleman back there, I believe
He's gonna say something.
I think.
I don't know.
I don't either. I'll find out. Yeah, he's on the list for 12 and 13.
Well, I mean, if.
Sure.
I should be on it, if I need to say something, I will.
Okay.
But I mean, I was kind of just, Eric asked me to come to, you know, if there were any questions as to how it would go, I can tell you,
Especially if
you know, I
there
can
are
answer
some,
questions.
Okay, all right, that'll work.
That's what,
sympathetic people
you know,
on the park.
That'll work. Okay.
yeah, I'd be happy to
That
answer
if we
whatever.
approach them
All right.
gently,
Will do.
respectfully,
Okay, thanks a lot.
Sure.
we can get a whole lot farther than pushing.
We could send a strong statement. And then I don't agree with that. Our statement
I
is
don't
done.
agree with that approach, because
But you know what, when we were trying to decide, knowing all the stuff that we knew about our legal and our payroll, people were accusing the staff of stealing more and very pushy. What was your human reaction?
Okay.
I know what mine was. Dig in my heels.
there was a lot of truth in some of those things. Like that for years.
How about putting,
Yes, yes.
oh, that's Kathy Ward's husband, Paul, Jeff Paul. Kathy Ward's husband. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
How about letting him camp both at the station and the community center? Yeah. He just brought out a point. There might be a lot of people who would prefer to go into the community, coffee shop and so on.
There was something that said,
Oh.
Think about that.
No, I hadn't either until he brought it up. And he thinks the community center is probably better than here anyway, for the indoor people, because you can't have it because they're so far out of town.
If they want 50 to 100, you can't get that. Even at the women's club.
No.
Someone could go in the gazebo.
True.
Have a roof over their head.
I don't know.
Let's go.
Can we? All right, the lights are dimming.
What are we on here?
We are on number 12. Okay, we have a request from Door County North to have approximately 300 overnight outdoor campers at the North Fire Station 2 nights, Tuesday, August 4th, Wednesday, August 5th, 2015. And in addition, approximately 50, maybe to 100 indoor campers in the town hall. The town hall on those particular events is not really available. The suggestion is to put them down to the community center, which is obviously a little bit smaller, but would accommodate, you know, a fair amount. You want to make a comment on this? Okay.
Susie's on this one.
Susan, I believe you're on the,
Yeah, we kind of wanted to hear what it was about before we commented. We
I would
weren't sure
actually
what you're
agree
doing
with
with it.
what she has to say. I'd like to hear more details before we comment.
oh, okay, very good. Do you want to kind of explain
Sure, Site Route is just is a bicycle tour. You're biking for a week, usually.
Sir, could you say your name for the
Jeff Ward.
video?
Jeff Ward.
Okay.
And,
Speak
into the microphone?
Yes,
No,
please.
okay.
You're on stage now.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, so it's just a bicycle touring group, okay? And what they're doing is they're gonna come up, and they want it to be able to go up to the island. And that's why it's a 2-night thing, is because they can come in, they'll be camped down in Sturgeon Bay, and then they'll come up from Sturgeon Bay, and then they'll have the option of touring the northern end or touring, Washington Island. And that's why they would be spending 2 nights there. And then next day, they'll go back down south to Sturgeon Bay. It's roughly around 300 people. I mean, sometimes it's, I've gone on 2 of them already, and sometimes it's 300 to 350, but,
What year, can you give us the dates that you're talking
I
about?
think it's in August.
It's August 4th
Yeah.
and 5th, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Right.
And this is the first time, they've had these as far as Sturgeon Bay, but this is the first time that they've requested to be able to come north, I believe.
They've actually gone up as far as Fish Creek.
Okay.
And they use the school there.
Okay, oh, that's right. That's
And
right.
they camped on the football field.
Right.
But the school wasn't inclined
Right.
to, because of the proximity to the beginning of school starting and all of the things that were going on at the school.
Why aren't they lodging?
Carol,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought he was taking questions. How can we make a comment if we don't even know what it's about?
well,
I mean, I wouldn't put.
I haven't got you on the list for a comment.
I know, but I wouldn't have put it on, because I had no idea who they were or what they were doing, so I would have.
Well, let him finish
Okay.
first, please.
So, and what happens is that opens up the opportunity for, if they're staying, once they can identify the route, then they can open it up to groups to maybe provide breakfast, lunches and dinners and stuff like that. And that's usually done with, Lions Club, people that want to do a fundraiser. I mean, that's what they're trying to do. They try to open that up so that the community can then benefit by these people being there.
How about the businesses maybe?
Well, the businesses too. Because you can tour, you know when they're gonna be there. If you wanted to offer something to generate people coming, a lot of, like the restaurants in places that we have stayed in the past, a lot of them would have special deals to bring the people in, to encourage them to stop at their place. It's just an opportunity that they're going to be there for 2 days. If you want them to come to your establishment, then, tell them and they'll come.
Maybe this will help. Let me read the communication we got from Darcy Pills of the Door County North on the background information. The Sagborough bicycle tours have been coming to Door County for the past 30 years, mostly the tours have stayed in Sturgeon Bay, and all the riders have asked to bike up farther into Door County. The tour is a week-long recreational bicycling event. The event will cover about 360 miles of biking with overnight stops along the way. The tour is not a race, but a leisurely recreational bicycle ride through the back roads of Wisconsin. All ability level riders with ages from 8 to 78 years old. The average age is 53 years old.
Afraid so.
Not only will this tour have a positive effect on endorsing bicycling in your community, but it will also have a definite economic impact on your town. Past tour data collections have proven that the average touring cyclist spends a minimum of $35 a day. So it has a fair amount of impact possibility.
Yeah, and the idea is to get them into Ellison Bay and let Ellison Bay take care of all of that, you know, the coffee shops, the restaurants, that sort of thing, and the proximity to the hotels there. You know, there are people that go on this tour that stay in hotels also. So there's some that camp, some that, they offer, rooms for. So it just depends on the individuals as to which they prefer. But
I think
I'm
we
a
need,
camper
I think
myself.
we need to know the nuts and bolts of what's gonna go on at the fire station when they're camping there. How's everything gonna be handled?
I believe they have their own shower truck. They'll bring in the toilets, and then it's just a matter of the space to be able to put your tent on. There's not a whole lot that you need to do.
How about the indoor campers, so to speak?
They will line up like cordwood. They put down their mat and they sleep there. They're usually, in bed early, up early,
And
and gone.
facilities are there for them as well, Lou? Or they use the facility in the indoor?
Could, or can provide, porta potty, it depends on how many bathrooms and how many people are staying there. And they'll know once they can establish the route, that, you don't know how many people are gonna come actually until you have the established route, you have the okays, and then you can, see how many people will sign up.
My understanding is on the indoor, people sign up for the indoor. So if you have, so you can only take, say, 30 people on an indoor, that's it?
Right.
So,
Yeah, and then the rest would either have to go to a hotel, or if they didn't wanna camp, or, they rent tents too, So, but it doesn't require a whole lot of space, for that.
I'd asked you, Jeff, during break, but I'd like to ask the same question again. Is this in some way competition for local people with campgrounds if we allow people to camp at the fire station?
And you're talking 2 days,
Yeah.
and you don't have, you can't just rent the park, and put them in the park. You can't do it at Newport. To get up north, to be able to go up to the island, that's the idea. I don't know that there's someplace that they can be. But it seems to me that it would be in the best interest of keeping them in Ellison Bay to benefit Ellison Bay. That's the idea.
What do they do for mealtime then? Do they have their own stuff, or?
No, they usually go to groups, Lions Club, Men's Club, for fundraisers, and that's how they, would like to go. If no one volunteers to fundraise off of it, then they would have to then provide something, so then they would maybe cater it, or you could bring in somebody to do a fish boil for them or something like that. That's what they would do. In the past, they've had a chicken dinner, but somebody would provide it, and they just, then, buy tickets for it.
Okay,
So if they were,
go ahead.
if they're at the fire station as an example, they wouldn't need to go inside the building at all. The facilities are all provided by the,
Yeah,
No, they don't have to.
you're right, yeah. I mean, they wouldn't need entry, you know, because they had bathrooms and the shower truck right there. I think the only thing that, it was for the shower truck to have someplace to
Water
put the water and supply and drain.
oh, so there's a holding tank at the firehouse?
No,
There's not?
conventional system, or a modified mound, I believe.
Modified mound.
It wouldn't take that volume on one big shot,
Probably not.
Guarantee you not.
and neither would the women's club. Just wouldn't handle it.
But I think you look in the case of the women's club, you'd put porta potties in there.
Right.
What about the shower water from the shower truck?
Well, I think you've worked that out, because I'm assuming this is not the first case that they've been in a rural area that cannot accommodate the water from the shower truck. I would assume they have a residual tank in that truck.
That I don't know.
And these are all things I think we have to work out with them anyways.
Mhm.
Okay. Carl?
Do we have any update on what the road construction's gonna be like? I mean, won't 57 be closed?
Well, you know, actually, we would try to stay off of 57 altogether. I mean, there's no reason to ride the highway except for there are places where you can't get, you know, and we try to keep it as short as possible because no one really wants to ride the highway anyway.
Susie?
And actually Garrett Bay, you know, I'm sure that they would use Garrett Bay Road and that's wonderful.
Yeah, I guess our question is, we know that you charge for a small group $100 to use a room in any of the buildings that are, you know, taxpayer supported. So what's the charge for this? How do you do this?
How, would we be charging?
Yeah, I mean,
The
you charge
town?
for a small committee meeting, you know, at one of your buildings, so how would you charge for this?
We wouldn't. The town?
It'd be mess to clean up and lawn.
Oh, that way. Yeah, we'd have to, I am sure that they have a document, if you will, a legal document that the community that they visit signs. And we're gonna have to find all this out, but I think what we need to do is indicate whether we wanna go ahead with this or not. Yes?
I think that this is the exact type of people that we need to bring to our community. I mean, I sat on the board for the Liberty Grove Bike Plan a few years ago. We talked about making improvements to roads over the next, 20 years, I think was the timeline on resurfacing all of those roads. We've been talking about bringing groups of people to Liberty Grove for economic impact. And I think that, we need to look at this for the long play, okay? Sure, they're gonna bring in porta potties, they're gonna trample the grass. I'm familiar with Sagbra, Ragbri in Iowa, the Rain-Ride in Indiana. They come to a place, they set up for the night, they do a fantastic job of cleaning up the next day. I've never seen a mess left by a group like this because they want to come back. They want to come back to our community. Sure, economic impact, $35 per person per day. It's okay, it's a couple $1,000 over the course of the weekend. But then they come and ride Garrett Bay Road, which is freshly paved, and they maybe go up to Isleview, which is freshly paved, and they go over the island, which is fantastic for cycling. All of these side roads that are not used by a lot of traffic, this is the person we're looking to attract to our community. I joined the corporate world now, but I worked in the kayaking industry for 7 years. I still go and speak to groups about it. And this is what we want to do. We want people that are gonna come, they're gonna experience the beauty of the county. Maybe they'll spend a little money now, but they'll come back. When we started having problems with launch issues with the kayaks, you know what? We're chasing a lot of people away because this is what we want to come here and spend money. These are the people that have dollars. Go with your average 63-year-old cyclist. Their bike costs $7,000. These are people with money. They're going to come back.
I'm afraid so.
This is the way this works. We need these people
Jeff,
to come here.
63?
It will cost us
No, I'm on a 60.
pretty much nothing. Nothing. Why would we not vote for them to come here every single year and advertise for our community by word of mouth?
I agree.
I
Are there perhaps for fundraising, churches like Shepherd of the
Oh, yeah,
Day
yeah.
might bring them in for a fee?
Convert 'em, too.
Absolutely.
For
Yeah.
meals and stuff?
Yeah, we've met at, the churches for, for snacks along the way. A lot of them put on a thing. And that's what Eric would do soon as he can set the route. Then he can start talking to people and see where the interest would lie for the fundraising and who would be interested in doing it.
Individuals might be willing to take in
Absolutely.
a family or two,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
John, that when Darcy talked to us about this, she did mention that the group would probably be willing to make a financial contribution of some kind for the use of the space. And I think if you get into a discussion with letting them use the women's club, it should be probably for rent, like any of the other nonprofit would do.
Yeah, and that I'm sure is
That
fine.
works, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fine. It's just a matter of, if we could allow the camping there too, then you could split it up for people that have different agendas. Some people want to be in town, some people want to be out of town, and you could divide it up so the impact is less on each area and spread it around a little bit. And that was
Joel?
the idea.
Joel?
We have hosted several events like this, including the Door County Sea Kayak Symposium. What I have an issue with is not that we have these events up here. Honestly, it's great. But since when is Liberty Grove in the hospitality business?
What?
This is stealing from the
Huh?
businesses.
Yeah.
When are
it's
you in the
stealing.
hospitality business?
You're offering free lodging. We can't beat that. We can't compete with
Wait,
it.
wait, 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 wait.
The
Wait,
campground-
wait.
You, no, Susan, Susan, just a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
You're telling me that Liberty Grove is not in the hospitality business?
If you're
This
sleeping
board
in
is
here,
not.
you're in the hospitality business. All of a sudden, you're in the hospitality business, and that's taking away from the businesses. We have ordinances up against it. We watch for campers that are camping in my backyard, you know? I mean, that's the kind of things we watch for, because we're trying to make money in Door County.
Okay,
And part of this
okay.
is
So you're,
hospitality, and we have
right,
campgrounds that can
so what
accommodate
you're
the-
suggesting right now is that we say no.
I'm saying no to camping out at the municipalities. I mean, I think this is something that belongs somewhere we can take good care of them. I mean, the shower trucks and porta potties, I mean, these people with their, $1,000 bikes are certainly willing to come to an event place where they're gonna have their own rooms and showers and a real bed and, and hot meals. I mean, I think it's wrong to put Liberty Grove in a position where now you're all of a sudden in the hospitality business.
It would seem that what you really have is an issue with Door County North. I mean, they're the ones who are making the request, and I'm assuming
Yes.
you're an integral part of that
I'm on board.
organization.
I'm not saying I agree with everything. If there's
It's on the board, but they
Yeah.
didn't talk about it.
No,
So
this did
they-
not, I didn't find out about this until it was on the agenda. And this email from Darcy went to you guys 2 days before we had our last meeting. I was completely unaware of it until I looked at the packet. Completely, and it was at page 16. I mean, it was on the agenda too, but the letter, which was emailed to you guys 2 days before our last meeting.
Yeah. Again, it does seem like the issue is with Door County
Yeah, it's
North.
not with us.
Well, you're gonna say yes now. I mean,
Yeah, we don't disagree, it should not have come to it all, but the point is, you're sitting here talking about, okay, they have Lions clubs and whatever, and we're saying, we have restaurants to support here too. You're not even talking about that. We have
Well, I
lodging,
think,
we have
I
campgrounds,
think
we have
Paul has
restaurants.
already alluded to the fact that the restaurants do.
At
There
least
are
the Lions
people,
Club could put it on.
there are
you know.
people that choose to eat at restaurants, and, and that's what they do.
Yeah,
Um,
and we've
so-
got great places, these people.
Right,
could
and
go.
that's the whole idea of having them there.
well, you're saying they're gonna stay here.
Actually, we were talking the fire station and the ladies club.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or
To
whatever.
be in town.
that's free, you're
Yeah.
saying, you're gonna offer that for free. So
No,
we're
they're
giving that
renting,
benefit.
they'll be renting the place, just,
Yeah.
there's a fee to rent the place. All we're asking is to be able to camp.
Yeah.
Well, you know, how
Okay,
can
I-
we say no to other campers that come up here who don't wanna pay for camping either? What do you say to those people?
Okay, I think we are gonna beat this thing to death. We have a request,
I've been calling Darcy for 2 days on it. Honestly, she has not returned my phone calls, so believe me, this is
But-
already,
with all due respect,
Yeah.
that's an issue between you, who was on that board, and the board and Darcy. It's not between you and the board.
I'm just saying, think a little bit before you say yes to this, because I think it's wrong.
You can't possibility of discussing it.
Where can I go? You guys are the ones that can say yes, so I have to talk to you.
I would, go ahead, Frank.
I
I'm not-
would like to have more exact information, Jeff. And not now, but in writing and in detail, what sort of an agreement you have. And I'd like to hear from the people who are in the business here, like Rowley's Bay Inn, as to how many they could take. Maybe there's a better
It's like 500 people.
solution.
Seriously. Feed as many.
Have you thought of that, Jeff?
He's not,
Okay.
he's not part of, yeah.
I know, okay. But you,
I've just been on them, and that's how it's worked.
okay.
And it's a good group of people.
No, personally, I'd rather see somebody that has a facility, like a campground, or a facility to do this, do it as a business, and because,
You'll get a room tax dollar, that's more.
Yeah.
we get the Visitors Bureau tax too.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Curious as to how this differs from the Centennial Bike Tour or ride that they do every year, where hundreds of people come up, and I know they make reservations a year in advance and lodging, and go to the restaurants. And I wonder how they're gonna feel about it if, it's the same thing, except that they pay, and this particular group does it differently, and
Well,
I'm
there
not
are-
sure how the other folks are gonna feel about it, and I can certainly understand how the businesses feel.
There are all kinds of tours. There are places that go end to end. There are things that do, where you carry all your own stuff, and camp wherever. And, this is just a different kind of thing, and there's a number of people that would be interested in camping. And there'd be and that's just, sleeping,
I mean, I don't own the Wagon Trail campground, but
Okay.
honestly, I think they would have an issue with it.
I see this more as analogous to Uncork Summer. I know that when that occurred, it did siphon off perhaps some trade in the restaurants where people would have gone to the restaurant, instead they went to Uncork. But for what it did, from my own experience, in terms of promoting the area, the beauty that we have, and as Casey suggested, the ability to come back because it is so beautiful, in the long run, it seems would have much more of a benefit than what it might do to temporarily siphon off some of the business, but in the long run, I think it'll promote it. And to me, if Door County North, regardless of the timing of how this was requested, to me, Door County North, I think, has the northern door businesses in mind as well.
Door County North did not know about this, Darcy knew about this. I was at the last meeting and it was not presented at all.
Okay, but
So
that's,
somebody in that board know about it.
that's an issue you have
Well, he
with,
said that.
with Door County North.
I don't know. I'm saying you can't say it's Door County North, but I'm on the board and I was at the last meeting and it wasn't even brought up. So it's Darcy that's saying that.
We have a request from Door County North.
Well, nobody talked about it that day.
We have a request from Door County North before us.
I don't feel as though I'm ready to vote on it. I'd like to get it on the next agenda.
Well, I think the motion would be to
You have,
consider extending approval, or to consider approving consideration of the fire station and the town hall
No,
for
no,
the SAGBRA.
it's gotta be
I mean,
community
the
center.
community center for the SAGBRA event.
If it truly didn't come from Door County North, as is being said, I think we better clarify that first and foremost.
Well,
Coming from Door County North.
No, it did not. It's coming from
Hey,
Darcy.
hey,
It did not
shh.
mention it at any
we have a communication from the coordinator, community coordinator of Door County North, asking us to consider this. Well, I guess I'm going to suggest we ask the Door County North to come and discuss this with us and bring the details of this. And if they have somebody from the organization that they could bring along, fine.
I think that's a good idea.
I agree with that.
Okay, so I'll make a motion at this point to table this until we get further information. Second? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Opposed.
4-1.
Who seconded that?
I did.
Frank did. Okay, going on to the next one, burial fees. That's rather appropriate. Janet?
It's a dead issue.
A suggestion was made by two individuals from separate organizations when I asked them how they handled the requests of relatives to be buried on other relatives' grave sites. For instance, I come into the office and I ask you, I would like to be buried on my grandmother's grave. Grandmother isn't here to speak. We have an ordinance that allows mother, father, son, or daughter. The suggestion was made that these requests come because at this point in time, we're not charging anything for that, but we are record keeping. The suggestion was made that we have a nominal fee for handling these requests. And I'm just wondering what you guys think. This is happening more and more. You'd be surprised at how often this is happening.
So a fee on top of what it costs to exhume or open the grave, that stays the same, but this would be just a fee for that.
Correct.
And we're talking about cremains here?
Cremains.
Yeah, it has to be cremains. Has to be cremains.
And what's the nominal fee?
They're suggesting $250.
Plus the opening of the grave.
Correct.
What does it take to dig a little tiny hole?
There's a $300 fee for that. You have to remember that these fees also create the perpetual care. Once you pay this fee, you're done. That's it. Our guys are mowing and cleaning up your plastic flowers and that kind of stuff. So that's what the fees are for.
Does Liberty Grove sell the grave sites as a plot, 10 feet by 15 feet or something like that?
They're about
10 by 15.
4 by 8 or 4 by 10, something like that.
And how many people, cremations do you allow in that space?
4.
4, and 1 regular burial?
1 regular and 1 cremain,
Hmm.
or 4 cremains.
And is this, you're saying because it doesn't accord with what we normally allow in terms of the relationship between the newest deceased person who wants their cremains there and who's in the grave?
What it basically is a request to be placed on someone else's grave site.
But only up to the limit of 1 grave site and 1 cremains,
Correct.
or 3 cremains. If grandmother was a cremain, then 4.
Get 3 more.
3 more other than grandma. Yeah, okay.
And up to this point, somebody could have been placed on that grave site at no cost other than the opening.
So now we're asking for the record keeping of the new fee.
Just as an extra fee, yes.
And perpetual care.
That was a suggestion that was made by a couple of different people.
Are they alive or dead?
Do you have a motion written up, Janet?
I'm not on the board.
Bring it back next time with a motion.
No, we can make a motion here.
We can make a motion here, get done with it.
I
I move that we establish a fee of $250 to add one cremain to an existing grave site if there is no cremains, or if there is a grave site for one cremains that three more may be added. That is for the fee for placing them there, and there be an additional fee of $300 for, what do you say, planting or?
We got that already.
Inserting.
Got that already.
Interning the cremain.
We got that.
Is there a second?
Does that say it clearly, Janet?
No.
Darn.
Well, you're adding one cremain to an existing occupied regular burial site.
Right.
And then, or you're adding 3 extra on a full site with an existing urn.
There was not a second. Okay, I'll move that we establish a fee of $250 for a cremain to be placed on a burial site, an already existing burial site, am I correct?
Occupied.
Occupied. And an additional fee to be added to a site that is already occupied by cremains. Does that make sense? I found the last discussion much more interesting.
Was it, are we gonna call it an administrative fee? Is it an administrative fee?
Yeah, administrative fee.
Because,
You're creating a burial site.
Yeah, you are creating a burial site.
So what it is a fee for to be placed on an existing burial site.
That's occupied. Correct?
Why don't we,
Do what I say, bring it back.
why don't we bring this back? We'll work up a
Work up a wording and bring it back.
Okay.
okay. I move we table this till the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Hope nobody dies between now and
Be careful.
It's free right now.
God, okay. Consider approval of for attending the clerk treasurer meeting on 10/28.
Who?
The clerk and the treasurer.
Where's it gonna be?
Sturgeon Bay.
They do it every year.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Consider locating broadband tower at Town Quarry on Mink River Road. David, please.
The Technology Committee has been working for a couple of years to find ways to improve broadband services in the Liberty Grove area. And the most productive discussions that we've had have been with Door County Broadband, formerly DC WISP, but now Door County Broadband. And this particular item is to request the board to approve that if the town can come to a legal agreement with Door County Broadband, that we could locate one of their communication towers, one of their transmission towers on our property at the town quarry. The map that I've just given you comes from Link, Wisconsin, which is a site, it's actually, there's a national map, which comes down to a state map, and I've zoomed in in this case on Liberty Grove. And this is the most recent data. The data, what this map does is shows covered versus uncovered areas for what is considered adequate broadband internet services. And this is the latest map that's out there. The data that goes into this map comes from the providers themselves. So the providers say these are where we're covering areas. The two areas that you see in gray here, you see them in gray because I don't have a color printer, are areas in Liberty Grove which are considered underserved. And in fact, they're so underserved that we are eligible for grant money. And that grant money is really hard to come by. So I don't have any great hopes of us actually getting grant money. But most of the areas, if you look at the larger Wisconsin map that are eligible for grant money, are in the North Woods. And that's who we would be competing with for that money. So these are the areas in Liberty Grove that are identified as underserved. The Technology Committee has been having discussions with Door County Broadband about how they might place towers to serve those areas. And where I've placed an X, and my X is very approximate on this map, is about where the quarry is at. And so we have an opportunity to place a tower there, assuming we can come to an agreement. There's been no negotiations at this point. Door County Broadband has had such a negotiation with Nassau-Waupee, and they have just supplied me a copy of the agreement that they've made with Nassau-Waupee for us to start with, to take a look at. So that's where it's at. We're asking for permission to proceed, that assuming we could come to an agreement, that the approval, that it's worth everybody going through the effort. The tower, by the way, would be in the range, and I don't have the exact number, but I'm going to say 120 to 125 foot tall. It is a tower very similar to the one that's next to the fire station or the one that's right behind the building here, except taller. Oh, and it would also be a guy-wide tower because it is taller. It takes approximately an acre of space to put up a guy-wide tower of that height.
I'm looking for
I
X.
did have communication with the chairman of Nassau-Waupee, and they are placing the A tower on the town's property as well down there. But
At the Brussels Hill, all those towers, some of them belong to county, some of them belong to Horizons, all that sort of.
Right.
And some towers have more than one person on them, like, I forget which one it is, the county's on a tower they don't own.
Right, well, the ones up here, I think, have multiple, at Ellison Bay.
Now, look at your X, I think you're in the middle of a swamp here, I'm not sure.
Well, I did my best to translate this from another map that had location of town property, so.
You have to understand, David's background is not geology.
Or geography.
David,
The quarry's north of Sister Bay, right?
No, it's east.
East of Sister Bay.
The address is 11159 Mink River Road.
Yeah, but see, you're not even close to Mink River Road there, I don't think.
Well,
The
that's
way it
kind
drops
of a
out
moot
of
point.
Ellison Bay.
I was gonna follow up. Would it be proprietary to Door County Broadband, or if someone else came along, would they be able to also put their equipment on that tower to spark some competition?
That probably depends on the outcome of the negotiations, because one of the things has to be negotiated is who ends up in the long run with the ownership of the tower.
And you mentioned grant money, but what would the need for the grant money be?
This doesn't involve grant money at all.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay.
I only bring that up because to identify these areas as having been identified as seriously underserved, not by some governmental agency, not by a survey, but by the providers themselves.
Exactly.
Each person you add to the tower, though, you have to add heights to the tower.
No. No, the tower, you put up a tower and you put your transmitter mechanism up there, and then that can serve X number of people. I don't know what the limit on that is, but I'm gonna say it's 50, 75.
But if
100
you had another
households.
company come in They have to be separated out by, I think, 10 or 20 feet between the two.
That may be true. There are, the towers on Tower Hill, I believe but one of them are multi-tenant towers. I believe one of them is a single-tenant tower that doesn't rent space to anybody else.
I've got a question. In our 2015 budget, the Technology Committee asked for $15,000 for a tower. Is this the one that they're talking about?
No, that is there's money in the 2014 budget that was requested to put up a tower, and the goal of the Technology Committee, if it can be done, is to handle that on a revolving fund basis, so that we would actually help finance the tower, but then get paid back so that we could reinvest. And there's a need for a number of towers up here. It's inexact. A lot of people have guessed somewhere between 7 and 10 towers to provide service to the entire town of Liberty Grove.
So by revolving fund would mean someone like Door County Broadband or another ISP would like rent the tower or
In
pay for the
effect,
tower?
pay-
Okay.
pay-
So it's not the town being in competition with?
No, it's the town
Okay.
cooperating with an existing organization and using, in this case, the availability of our land, perhaps with less negotiation than they might go through with
Sure.
with a
Sure.
homeowner, plus in a location that's relatively isolated in terms of housing and so forth. There's not much immediately adjacent.
Nassawappi is getting reimbursed.
And-
It's getting a rental fee.
One of the discussion items is how much of a rental fee, and that depends on how the financing of the tower ends up. If we end up in the end owning the tower, obviously the rental fee would be higher than if they in effect pay for the tower and all they're using is our land.
So what we're asked to do is consider locating broadband tower. I think I would certainly consider it, if that's what the motion is, so.
Well, Carl wanted to comment on it too, so.
Do I
Sure.
ask from here?
Yeah, you better go up there. Be nice to him, though.
When this came up at the focus group recently, there wasn't anybody on the focus group that agreed with the concept of Liberty Grove fronting $15,000 for a tower. We all like the idea of $2,000 to Wi-Fi this building. Am I correct? That was the breakdown? Yeah. I don't know, you say that we're financing it, but then we end up owning the tower, and then we end up being in competition with Door County Broadband. That's what I don't understand either.
No, not at all.
Well, what does the $15,000 go for?
The negotiations haven't even started yet, okay? But the thought was that by the town providing some initial seed money for a tower, this doesn't cover the total cost of a tower. The total cost of a tower and the equipment that goes on is about $40,000. Okay, it covers basically the metal structure, physical tower, that the town could get an additional tower put up to make this happen faster, to provide coverage faster for the area, so that additional users could be using that tower and paying fees, out of which the town could then recover its money.
See, what I was hoping was, I believe his name was Kevin, who's headed
Yes.
Door, yeah, I was hoping he would stay around and address this, because I wanted to hear what his side, his view of this proposal is. I mean, is this a friendly operation where you are working together? I mean, or does he look at this thing as a landmine for him, or are you just encouraging Door County Broadband to pay more attention to Liberty Grove, instead of some other place?
So there may be truth in that last. We're wanting their attention here. They are serving the entire county, but this is very much a hand-in-hand relationship with Door County Broadband.
So this
If
is,
they-
there's nothing adversarial about this
If
process.
they don't wanna do this, it doesn't happen.
That's,
That's still unfair competition to another company.
We have no other company.
But when you have one, now you have set a precedent.
We, if,
Isn't this
if,
really a business law?
Okay, Hope?
Has anybody looked at the quarry site to determine where the best spot would be?
not to my knowledge.
Okay, because there's activity out there in a good share of that, so we have to
Yeah.
get Jay out there and
All of
determine
those-
where it's gonna not interfere with anything.
All of those things would have to be addressed. None of that has been addressed. At this point, we are only at the beginning of the specific talking points. We've been talking general for 2 years, and now we're ready to get talking in detail.
I can add just a little bit to that. First off, you can have a freestanding tower to 120 feet, but I don't think that the town should be involved in building any tower. I think it's fine we locate it on our quarry. It has to be located 45 feet from the property line according to, I believe, to the zoning ordinance or the state requirements. That's pretty much all they have. But the resolution is, consider locating broadband tower at town quarry. It's not obligating us to spend any money on it or anything like that. So I would make a motion, we pursue this, but I would not, in the future, support spending funds on it, town funds.
Is that your motion?
Well, no, I should have stopped there. My motion would be to consider locating tower at town quarry, but, and that's my motion.
Is there a second? I'll second.
All right, and then I'd just like to go back to what Kevin said, private sector solution for all problems. I'm not gonna consider spending money on this.
Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Operator licenses?
There are none.
There are none. Correspondence, there is,
I have one item, there's, that's a future meeting date. I do have a blurb I got from, on an email called Wisconsin's Forests Benefit from Active Management. That's put together by Jennifer Sereno, who is a public affairs manager for DNR's Office of Communications. It's about a 5-page document on what can be done to manage forests. That's it.
okay, before I make a motion to adjourn, I would like to give you rule number 20 from Alan Alda. Nothing important was ever accomplished without chutzpah. Columbus had chutzpah, the designers of, or signers of the Declaration of Independence had chutzpah. Don't ever aim your doubt at yourself. Laugh at yourself, but don't doubt yourself. I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?